All right, good evening. This is a meeting of the Cohasset Select Board. It is November 28th, 2023 at 6:30 PM. Let me do roll call vote, starting with Mr. Creighton, please.
Jack Creighton here.
Ms.
Helen
Hunt,
Mar present.
Mr. Grady,
Already present.
Chris Plex here.
Jean Haley Dippold here. Okay, can everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? All right. Schreier is getting the flag. Oh, we should have put that.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Justin? All right, we are, the first item on the agenda is executive session. There are two exemptions. The first is to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigation of the public body and the chair so declares. The chair so declares here and the board will discuss the pending oyster litigation. That's exemption 3. Exemption 6 is to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real estate if the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body. The chair so declares here, the board will discuss a potential lease. Would anyone like to make a motion under exemptions 3 and 6 to go into executive session?
I'll make those motions.
Second.
Okay. Roll call vote, please. Mr. Creighton?
Jack Creighton, aye.
Helen Mar, aye.
Sorry, Mr. Grady.
Already aye.
Chris Plex, aye.
Jean Haley Dippold, aye. All right, we will reconvene at approximately 7 o'clock. It's 7:22. It's a meeting of the Cohasset Select Board. We are coming out of executive session. Apologies, we're a little bit late. First things first, any public comment for an item not otherwise on the agenda? Yes, Mr. Tarpey.
Thank you for remembering me. My purpose here tonight is to ask you to upload the list of private roads and public ways.
And-
I have that backwards.
Mr. Tarpey, could you come here so people can hear you? The problem is if you speak from the chairs, we've gotten feedback that there's no feedback.
Thank you. I'm here tonight to ask you to consider uploading the list of public roads and private ways to the town website. I find that many people in town who live on private ways don't know that. I think it would be good for them to know that insofar as there is now a taxation issue that kind of divides the town between those people who live on public roads and private ways. And there's also somewhat of a liability issue if you live on a private way and you sell your property and don't disclose it. So I think it's in everybody's best interest that this document be publicized so the people who live in those areas know it and are able to let other people know as well.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tarpey.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, any other public comment? All right, we'll do the public hearing for the fiscal year 2024 tax classification.
Hello,
Hi, how are you?
good. Mary Quill, Director of Assessing. Want handouts? You have it on your computer. Oh, never mind.
If you want one,
Yes.
got them.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, look at that.
Thank you.
Light reading.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Patrick.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you.
Okay, the purpose of this hearing is to allocate the tax levy across all property classes evenly with a single tax rate, or to shift the burden to the commercial class and reduce the residential portion with a split tax rate. So the first page is to break down the properties by class. Our residential class is 3.7 billion at 93% of the town. The commercial, industrial, and personal property are a total of 259 million, representing 6.5% of the town. So that would be the calculation I'm going to use with the total value. The next page is the levy limit calculation. So that we take last year's levy limit, add 2.5 under Proposition 2.5, which is the original levy limit from last year was 43.2 million. We add the 2.5%, which is $1,082,000. Add our certified growth, which has already been certified at $839,000. Our levy limit before any debt or overrides would be $45,221,473. The debt exclusion is this $761,000 is the remaining school renovation and school planning. This is the 20th year. It's going to drop off of fiscal '24. The two new stabilization overrides are the schools facilities that was voted and the 800,000 for the roads. So that collectively 2.3 million. So now that changes our $45 million levy limit to 48,283,361. The property classes are divided on the bottom. 3,049 of our parcels are residential, and 294 are commercial, industrial, and personal property. The next is the tax rate calculation for a uniform single rate. We take the residential share of the levy with the 3.7 billion, add 259 million to it. Our total value for the town taxable is $3.9 billion. The levy limit with the debt exclusions and the overrides is 48 million. We divide the 48 million by the 3.9 billion and come up with a uniform tax rate of 1217. So the bottom half of this page is breaking out the residential share that proofs out to 1217 and the commercial share. So our uniform rate would be 1217, and our values are certified at this point in time, and the growth. So in order to split the rate, we're going to shift 50% of the tax burden onto the commercial class to determine these values. The The minimum residential factor is 96%. So that factor is derived from our calculations, and it tells us that the residential share of the levy, which is the 96%, if we shift the rate, they have to pay at least 96% of their share. So this is kind of confusing, but the 48 million times the 93% residential gives us a levy limit of 45 million that's going to be borne by the residential people. We calculate the 96% of that share, and we come up with 43 million of the levy. So the 43 million residential share of the levy divided by the residential value gives us a tax rate of 1175. So if we're going to use 43 million out of the 48, the rest of the levy has to be borne by the commercial class. So the calculation on the bottom takes the levy less the residential share. So that leaves the commercial and industrial share at 4.7 million. Divided by their value of 259 million gives us a tax rate of 1826 as compared to the residential share at 1175. So in order for us to assess a split rate, we're going to give the residential people, this is the maximum relief, to 1175 from 1217, but then we're going to put it all on the commercial class. So the minimum residential is 96.5. We can go anywhere between 96% and 100% to do this example. So I did 98%. The last column is 98% of the residential share. So that shifts it, instead of being 1175, it's only going to be 1199, but the commercial share is going to be 1478 instead of 1826. You follow me? Okay. All right, so the next page is an example of what the impact of that split rate would be. The first column is if we have a uniform rate with all properties. Somebody that has $1 million property with a tax rate of $12.17 would have a tax bill of $12,170,000. The split rate, the blue column, would be the 1178 and the 1826. Oh, I just noticed that's supposed to be 1175. What's 3 cents, right? But the example is to show that the $1 million property with a tax rate of 1178 would save the residential people $390 on their tax bill. But it would, the $18.26 tax rate would cost the commercial class $6,090. And then the green column is the lesser severe impact. The 1199 tax rate on $1 million property would have a tax savings of $180, but the commercial class would have an increase of $2,600. So that's the story. Now, I calculated what our average, with our new values, I calculated what the average single-family valuation was and what the average tax bill was. So last year, our average single-family was $1,218,000. This year, it's $1,288,000. The average tax bill last year was $14,000. Now it's $15,600. Average increase on the $1,288,000 building, residence is $1,298.25, which is a 9% increase. So I've expanded on that. The 9% includes the debt exclusion, the override stabilizations. So the last page is the debt exclusion, the stabilization override, and the value of the town. I've attributed 19 cents out of the 1217 is attributed to the debt exclusion, and 58 cents out of the 2.3 million is 58 cents is attributed to the $2.3 million override out of the tax rate. So if you apply it down below, the $1,288,000 house, if you add the 19 cents on, you're adding almost $250 to the tax bill, and the stabilization to overrides adds $750. So that collectively, it's increasing the taxes by almost $1,000, and that's attributed to the debt and the debt and the overrides. So it's 9%, but 7% of it is this piece of the pie. Any questions? I know it's a lot.
Proposing, which is what we've historically done, a uniform rate, not a split rate.
It was a recommendation of the Board of Assessors at their last meeting to recommend a uniform tax rate, which is a single rate.
And we've done that at least the entire time.
21 years.
Yeah, yeah. So the split rate was just illustrative. If we wanted to go down.
Exactly.
Then we'd have to go up substantially on the commercial side, given how small the base is.
Yes, and it's not practical where we only have 6% commercial. And the commercial is commercial, industrial, and personal property.
Okay,
So it's quite small.
so we're looking at going up from an 11.8% tax rate
1180, yeah.
to 12.17 as a result of the recent tax
Yep.
increases that were passed.
Yep.
Okay. Ellen, did you have a question?
That was my question, what the current rate was, 1180.
Yes.
Okay.
And just for folks who may be tuning in at home and thinking about the numbers that were on, for example, the tax calculator, et cetera, here you're using an average single-family valuation of 1.28, but we used a median tax valuation, a tax assessment of approximately 1 million, I think is the median in Cohasset.
I can
don't know
tell
if
you
that's
what it is.
still the case as of FY 2024.
I calculated it. It is 1,044,800.
Okay.
That's the median.
Okay, okay,
And I can,
a little.
yeah, and I can do this exercise with that figure if anybody wants it.
No, just so
Yeah.
people could see
Yep.
where average versus median as they look at the different numbers. Are there any questions? So vote.
So we're going to keep the hearing open because we haven't finished the recap and we don't know what the excess levy capacity is going to be. So as soon as I get that, I'll come back to you with there's an LA5 that you have to sign saying that you voted for the uniform rate. And there's a second piece, there's a small commercial exemption that the board has to vote on. I didn't even do a workup on it because it allows the selectmen to shift the tax burden within the commercial class up to 10%. So you're literally taking, it was designed for the mom and pop stores, but there's so much criteria. You have to be less than $1 million. You have to be, you're in a strip mall and one person is greater than $1 million, you're out. If you have more than 10 employees, you're excluded. The criteria is pretty extensive, so, and it's shifting within the class, and with a town like Cohasset that has 6%, it's not practical.
You mean $1 million in revenue, right?
$1 million in value, $1 million in value. So if there was a strip that had, 10 properties, and one of them had 11 employees and the rest had 10, then that disqualifies them. There's so many things that disqualify them that it's really not practical. So I can take a vote on that, but we can't take a vote on the other one until I have the excess levy capacity.
Why don't we do all the votes at once?
Okay, that's fine.
That works for you.
Yeah, that's fine.
We vote now.
Yeah, all right. Any questions? Well, you know where to find me if you come up with any. All right, thank you very much.
Right. Now we have a continued public hearing that we started.
Might want to formally just continue this till December 12th.
Okay, okay. All right, so I need to read the notice.
No, I don't think so. I think you can just continue. I know, I'm talking about
Okay.
tax hearing because you're keeping it open.
Oh, the text, sorry, I
I'm
thought you were
sorry.
talking about the minor.
No, I meant,
Okay.
I would just want to vote
All
to
right.
continue the hearing till December 12th.
I'd invite a motion to continue the hearing on the tax classification.
I'd make the motion to continue the hearing on the tax classification until December 12th.
Second?
All those in favor, please vote aye. Aye. Unanimous vote. Okay, thank you. So now we have a public hearing on, well, it's a continued public hearing on Minot Wine. Have they requested a continuance until December 12th?
Yes, Tracy advised me that they had requested a continuance.
Okay, okay. So it sounds like we don't need to open it, Tracy, we just need to, okay. All right. So now we are at the public hearing for the Golf Tavern.
Thank you.
Vote to continue the hearing.
Okay. I'd entertain a motion to continue the Minot Wine hearing to 12/12.
Make the motion to continue wine at mine until December 12th.
Second?
All those in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Evening. Hi, my name is Attorney Robert Galvin. I represent Dinesh Thakur, who's with me. Behind both of us is his son. This is Hashraj Thakur. Dinesh and Thakur are the owners of Vidhan LLC. Dinesh is the majority member and his son is the minority member, but they're the complete interest holders. So my client here is a newly formed limited liability company headquartered in Braintree that has secured.
Attorney Galvin?
Sure.
We should probably open with a public hearing notice first
Yes.
for belt and suspenders. I can't see our attorney around you. Yeah, okay. So the Cohasset Select Board, acting as liquor licensing authority, will hold a public hearing on Tuesday. Notice. Actually, it's continued, so I don't think we need to, right? I just want to make sure before Attorney Galvin.
No, this is our first.
This is the first? Okay.
Yeah, I have the public hearing. now.
Okay, I get it. I see it now. The Cohasset Select Board, acting as liquor licensing authority, will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, November 28th, 2023 at 7:10 PM, 91 Sawyer Street, Wilcox Commons, Cohasset, Mass. to consider the application of Vinhan LLC doing business as Golf Tavern for a new on-premises Section 12 all alcohol annual license. The proposed manager is Dinesh Chandra Thakur. The licensed premises is located at 390 Chief Justice Cushing Highway, Cohasset, Mass. The applicant is proposing an indoor golf and entertainment facility in a first floor, 4,200 square feet. The facility will consist of golf simulators and related amenities and retail items, a small bar with seating and table service for all alcohol beverages, on-site consumption with limited food service and other activities. The public is invited to offer input on the proposed writing in advance of the public hearing by emailing selectboardcomments@cohassetma.org or in person at the hearing. The public can also attend via Zoom. Details for access to the Zoom platform for the hearing will be posted on the Select Board's agenda. When posted, the agenda will be available online at www.cohassetma.org in the meeting/hearing notices of the calendar section located on the bottom of the front page of the website. Apologies, Attorney Galvin.
No, not a problem. Just as a housekeeping matter, I also did give notice to all abutters on a certified abutters list. And I could hand that to Tracy or give it to you all here, but I did give everybody notice of the public hearing that was, I believe, also advertised. So again, thank you very much. I've indicated who I represented. So Vidhan is proposing to operate a golf tavern at the Cohasset Plaza in one of the empty spaces there. The facility is basically going to house 4 golf simulators, have a small bar with about 7 or 8 seats. There'll be a pool table, darts, and shuffleboard area for people waiting to use the golf facility. But this is very much, and it is also going to have a very limited food menu. And I'll get into that in a minute because there's been some concerns raised by the health director regarding that. But in any event, it's a 4,200 square foot empty space today. When it's finished, I think it's just over 3,000 square feet. Work has actually commenced. There's been a building permit already issued. My client, when the build out is completed, is going to open even before the liquor license, and regardless of what the local license issues, but obviously they're looking to add that amenity. They selected this location after looking at the demographics and looking at competitors, and the closest competitor to them would be at the South Shore Country Club, where they have a golf simulator facility. Some of the private clubs have also added them, but the other closest one going south is in Pembroke, iGolf. So this seems to be situated prominent location, Cohasset, where they think they'll do quite well. The facility will be staffed by Dinesh Thakur. I have his resume, and I brought the resume of his son, who'll be with him, and I brought ample copies for everybody that I can pass out. So the property is under a lease now. Facility as shown on the site plan accompanying the application. Has 2 entrances, 2 exits, interior seating for 20 with a total capacity of 80, 4 golf simulators, a small retail area to purchase golf merchandise, 2 dart areas, a pool table, and a shuffleboard table area. The facility is not intended to be a bar where people just congregate and drink. It's a facility where people who love golf can come and rent the simulators and relax in a golf environment in inclement weather and year round. Dinesh Chandra Thakur, who goes by the name of Dinesh, is 67. He's got a master's degree in business administration from the BK School of Business in India, an undergraduate degree in textiles engineering. If you looked at his resume, you'd see that he's got an extensive background in the textiles industry, including 18 years as the owner of his own textile factory in India. Since coming here to the United States, he's worked in property, hotel, and motel management. As the majority owner of the business, he expects to be on the premises far in excess of 40 hours. He's already tip trained, has been safe serve trained, and allergen awareness trained. Any employees that are going to be serving alcoholic beverages will be similarly trained, and again, we expect about 3 employees. The proposed hours of the business will be 7 days a week from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. He has applied for a construction loan, but that hasn't gone through. So what I've provided you evidence that he has the financial resources to complete the build out, regardless of whether he gets the loan. In the event that he does get the construction loan, he would probably come back to the board and ask for permission to pledge, but that'll be determined by the lender once we know what the loan conditions would be. So would return on another day if that was something that we needed to change. As I indicated, Dinesh's son Thakur is the only other interested party. And if you looked at Hashraj's background, he's a longtime environmental engineer in the Southeast Regional Office of the DEP. And I guess he's worked on solid waste facilities, including in Cohasset. So the build out is well underway now. The technology for the 4 simulators is apparently coming on Monday. The town has been wonderful with the application process for the building permit. There's a couple of concerns that I'll address quickly. The health director had a concern over whether the facility needed a hood to cover the area where they're going to cook. And the way it's been explained to me is if you've ever been to a Subway or a Dunkin' Donuts, you'll see that they have an oven that sits on the counter that's it's ventless. It has a catalytic converter in it. So those types of ovens, which basically are used to reheat prepared foods, which is what their plan is, doesn't require a hood. The health director also mentioned the installation of a grease trap. We don't think with the nature of the business that we're doing there, where we're not going to be washing any plates and we're not going to be cooking any food, would require it. But my client is going to put in a internal grease interceptor, which has 4 or 5 times the capacity to handle any projected grease that would come from the business. We've also agreed to put in a 3-bay sink in case we needed to do any type of washing of anything. The reason we don't need to wash dishes is because all of the plates and the utensils that are going to be used here are all going to be disposable and recyclable and compostable. So it's not a facility that is going to generate any type of wastewater washing any type of utensils. So hopefully we've got that under control. So my client, and you're welcome to say a few words, Dinesh, if you want, but they understand that having a liquor license in any community is a revocable privilege. They've read and we've gone over the Cohasset liquor regulations, in addition to most of the major state laws that relate to the sale and keeping of alcoholic beverages. We've supplied to you a corporate vote that appoints Dinesh as the manager of the facility. He's over 21 years of age, and he's a suitable candidate, and I think he's been vetted by the police department with a Corey background check. As a manager, he's going to carefully select the staff that work here. It's going to be a very small facility for that. He's going to ensure that they're all properly trained before they start. He's going to ensure that there's not going to be any type of criminal activity on the site. And he certainly is aware of his obligation to report and intercede if there's any attempt to purchase or provide alcoholic beverages to minors. He's committed to enforcing all local regulations and state laws. He's committed to keeping this premises neat and clean and sanitary. The facilities that they've purchased for the golf simulators are state-of-the-art. They're the type of simulator that's offered in an equivalent of a Top Golf facility. And he's going to keep the premises so that no beverages ever leave this property. So we feel like this is a facility which is could really succeed here in Cohasset and will serve the public convenience.
Thank you, Attorney Galvin. Appreciate it. Mr. Senior, a question for you. How many liquor licenses do we have left? Go ahead.
Of this type,
Yes.
the all access to.
Two. Okay, so this would be one, and then we have a potential another pending one out there, and then we'll be all done. Essentially, if we should. All right. I'll quickly go down. Any questions, Mr. Creighton?
I'm fine with it. I think it's a good thing, and I think there's a great need for a golf facility in Cohasset, especially when you look outside in a day like this.
Ms. Moore?
I had a lot of questions based on the materials we received prior to this afternoon at 5 o'clock. So you answered a lot of them. Thank you. I have concern about the viability of pre-cooked, pre-packaged food heated up in terms of consumer appeal. You stated that this isn't a place where people are going to go sit at the bar and drink all day. It's not the intent. And what's your experience dealing with food of this type and waste of the food?
This is the type of food you would see more at like a Subway. I don't know if you've ever been to a Subway shop where they have pre-cooked steak that is warmed in this type of convection oven and then served.
But it's made fresh.
It's all fresh, and then it's fresh frozen, and then it's literally heated in this oven and then served. It's more like something you would see at a Dunkin' Donuts, where a lot of the materials are made elsewhere, brought here and preserved until the time they're heated and then served. It's not intended to be a full-service restaurant. These are intended to be snacks. It's not a place where we expect the average customer will go there because they're looking to have a great meal. This is more in the nature of heated snacks and a limited menu.
Okay. Okay, because the material, I thought the menu was quite extensive for what it was. This whole long list, that's expensive, in my opinion, just in my opinion.
The oven has the capability of, Hashraj has a recipe book, and it's quite extensive what they can actually cook in these ovens, but that's not exactly what they intend to do.
Okay. And you answered my question about utensils and plates and things, and that's all disposable.
Disposable and compostable, correct.
Okay. In materials we got from the building inspector, it said 3,200 square feet of space. Your applications had 4,200, but you indicated 3,200 is the finished space?
Yeah, there's some other space that is not
So there's 1,000 square feet of space that's
taken up by the simulators and things like that. The licensed area you wouldn't include all of that in there. The space itself as a vanilla box is 4,200 square feet.
Okay. So guests can't go to the simulator with a beverage?
Well, they
Or with-
can, but you wouldn't be going all the way in. You'd probably be sitting at the outside, and then someone would be hitting a ball. You would never go in that area.
Okay. I drive by the new Top Golf out in Canton twice a day,
Yeah,
and it's packed.
yeah.
So I think that there is a need for this. Have you
Yeah.
visited there?
I- I've been. It's a $40 million facility that employs 450 people.
Yeah.
It's
Took 3
unbelievable.
years to build it, yeah.
10. That's what I was told.
I've been driving by it for 3 years, almost
Yeah.
4, but yeah. Okay. All right, those were my questions.
It sounds like you're going to be very focused on getting this up and running. I noticed that you also have a business in Attleboro. Would you continue to be the property manager in Attleboro?
I'll have to leave that. This is going to be my own business. I'm going to manage it full time.
Okay.
So I'll have to leave that. That was just a stopgap arrangement. I was keeping myself busy and all that. But at Attleboro, I'm going to stop. I'll be full time over here.
Thank you.
So I just have 2 questions. Would beer and wine classify under the full liquor license, or would it?
Yeah, full license was everything, but there's also a separate license for just beer.
So, I mean, a liquor license for its limited hours, and would beer and wine suffice? And I'm just asking.
I think they determined that they would prefer to have a full license if it were available.
Just a little concerned because we have one on the plate, that's all. That's my, it's a nice business. My only concern is a business opening up, for, say, if we got another restaurant. So those are my, and we can always use a restaurant in Cohasset, I'm sorry to say. But that's my only concern.
Yeah.
I think you've got a very nice thing going. I hope it's very popular. Just I'm a little concerned about the full liquor license. Beer and wine might do the trick. And just
I think if we opened and we weren't doing very well with, mixed drinks like that, I think we'd probably be willing to talk about that in the future, as to whether we should convert it. But I think to be as successful as we hope, I think the belief is that someone might want to purchase a whiskey or something like that. And that's going to be outside of the ordinary annual beer and wine license.
I have, one more question for Mr. Senior. Chris, they stated the hours of operation are 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Is there any local ordinance on when alcohol could be served? I don't think you,
State law does regulate that, but I believe that they've extended the hours.
State law regulates it, or allows it to be sold during these hours. On Sundays, they would be selling at, I think at 10 o'clock would be the hours for alcohol on Sundays.
okay, we presently don't have any facility in town that serves at 8 a.m. alcohol.
State law doesn't allow you to serve that early. You can't serve before 10.
Oh, I thought he just said
On Sundays,
on Sunday you can't, but Monday through Saturday.
you could, they have a right to operate between 10, starting at 10 and ending at 1 a.m. But a board, selectman licensing authority can allow them to open up earlier at 8 and go to a later time for the closing. There's certain hours, 11 to 11, they have a right to operate under the state law.
Okay, so we're being asked to authorize serving alcohol starting at 8 a.m. Monday through Saturday. Is that correct?
10 to 9 on Sunday.
9 on Sunday.
I just gave you the hours of the business, but the hours that alcohol would be served would
We
be,
don't propose to do it right from 8 in the morning. It's a coffee time. The actual drinkers would start maybe after 11. Normally it's 11 to 11, but we are not going to keep the facility open till 11 also. It will be from 8 to 9. It will be well. And then we'll abide by the regulations of the state also.
The only reason we decided to open at 8 is because we have Sunshine Senior Living facility across from the place where we are proposing. And seniors tend to play early golf. Even my dad, when he goes golfing, he prefers early golf, like tea time at 8. So for that thing, we are preferring to have so that seniors can come and we have a senior time. So our early bird time in the morning will be $35, which is less than what our peak hour time will be. This is just to cater the seniors and so they can have time to come and play and have golf time. Because once after 12, if you look at any indoor golf facilities, they are packed, they are booked, and it's a drive for anybody to go. So just to cater that a particular demographic, we decided to open at 8. And at that point, we're just going to have for our seniors early bird specials, senior specials, and things like that. We don't really intend to do any alcohol sale at that time. Our projections, which we submitted to our banks and everything, if you see, we didn't do any alcohol projection in that because we are not trying to take revenue out of that. We are a golf facility and that's what we want to do.
So what are the hours that?
Do you want to propose 10 a.m. to 9 p.m.?
Sure. I'm totally fine with town.
Yeah, I think it's awesome that you thought of the seniors, and I think you're absolutely right at 8 a.m. But, and I'm just concerned, we're asking to grant an alcohol on-premise license, so I just want to be clear, not of your total hours of
Yeah,
operation.
The hours of operation would be 8 to 9, 7 days a week, but alcoholic service would agree that it wouldn't be till 10 and it would end at 9.
Before 9, because 9 is
Right.
the close of facilities. so
They'd give a last
will be at
call
8.
a half hour earlier.
Are there any other questions, or would someone like to make a motion? It sounds like for the, yes, Attorney Lemke, I feel like, is there a suggestion you have for us?
Yes, I gave you a memo, albeit somewhat late, I apologize. It has a suggested motion at the bottom of the bold, because the establishment is not completed yet, it's not built out yet, but the law does allow the licensing authority in their discretion to approve a license establishment that's not yet in existence. It's subject to a condition that the license is not issued until the establishment has completed the construction in accordance with the plans. That's why it's important that the board understand and follow the plans that they submitted for the establishment, because that's what's going to be the guide as to whether or not they completed everything in accordance with the plans.
This is I actually have an updated plan. I think you might have it already, but this is the plan that we actually have for the building permit. So it contains a lot more detail than the initial plan that accompanied the application.
Okay,
So I'm sorry, I have one more question. So you've purchased the simulators, you've signed a lease, you're working on the build out. Would you still do it without an alcohol license? And what impact does the alcohol license have on your business plan when your attorney said in the opening that it's really not going to be a destination to go drink? Because I'm just concerned, as my colleague, Mr. Grady, said, about how many licenses we have left and in the town where we have very limited licenses. If this isn't an integral part of your business plan and you've done all of this already, not knowing if you were going to have a license, then how important is it?
Well, I think it's important to us. And I think that's why we applied for it. And do I think it's going to be the principal activity of the facility? I do not think it's the principal activity, but it's very customary for golf facilities, whether they're a private club or public club, to have a liquor license. And people go to these places not to recreate and relax. And one of the things they do when they do this is they enjoy an alcoholic beverage. And I think it is an important part of the business, but it is not the principal part of the business.
Okay.
You have the copy of the plans that were filed with the building department. If you want to take a look at those, and perhaps when you make your motion, if you do make the motion to approve it, that you reference these plans so that they're part of the record, because those plans will be the guide by which the town will determine that they built it in accordance with what they represented to the board.
okay. So, yes, sir.
Just by way of context, we brought up the Topgolf facility before. Do we know if the Topgolf facility is beer and wine or if it's
It's a full liquor license.
Full.
Thank you.
So the beer and wine liquor license, or beer and wine license, how many of those do we have that are separate from just the all alcohol? Is that in addition to the
Yes.
all alcohol?
Correct.
Okay. Well, how does the board feel about suggesting to the applicant we start with beer and wine?
I'd be predisposed towards that.
Given our concern about the limited alcohol license, we're trying to meet them halfway as they get their business started up, and then we can revisit it later on if need be, depending on how your business turns out. And the other licenses, we know we have some demand that's also on the way with respect to an all alcohol license, restaurants with the offering, full offering of food. How do people feel about that?
I'd be more amenable to that.
I think it's a good compromise.
That's what
Would you, as the applicant, be amenable to that?
Can I say something?
Yes, go ahead.
It's, as our attorney said, it's not the main part of the business, but it's an integral part. The only thing is we are not the first in the area. We have X Golf, which is coming in Hanover. We have Golf Lounge 18, which is coming in Braintree. We have iGolf, which is in Pembroke. They all have full alcohol licenses. What happens is when somebody comes to play, and even though they are not there to drink, but everybody has that, if we pick the word, that type of a drink or what they want, not necessarily a hard liquor, but sometimes a margarita or a cosmopolitan. And if we are not able to serve that, they can have an experience once. But when they are in a mood to go and have an outing with the friends, which is just probably for an hour, we won't be picked as a number one facility. And that actually will hurt us based on the demographic where we are and the rent and everything what we are paying. So as our attorney said, we are not actually installing Fright-Sight. Foresight is something which Topgolf installs. Our technology is 4 times costlier than Foresight. I'm installing TrackMan. TrackMan itself is what the pros use. It's indoor and outdoor. I have Titleist, which makes us specific balls for TrackMan with the chip inside. All this technology comes with a cost. And if we are limited to just beer and wine, and if we become a second option for the customers, we'll incur loss. I'm being very honest, this is not a big part, but this is something to attract the customers that, oh, they do have it. That's why we are having food, that's why we are having alcohol, that's why we are having license. As I said, we are still in the golf. Golf is the number one thing, but we have to cater our customers.
And the board has to consider the public need, yes.
Yeah, I wanted to interject earlier. He has a very good point. A lot of people, I'm not a drinker, so it doesn't make any difference to me, but there are a lot of people who really expect in something like this to have a cocktail of their choice. And we have 2 licenses, and I'm not quite sure that on the basis of we might have demand for more licenses, that we would deny a perfectly qualified business with something that's very customary in their business, and there is a demand in Cohasset. So, it'd be one thing if we had other people vying for it, but to keep liquor licenses, which are, after all, issued for a public convenience. It's not just for them, it's because the public that we serve is looking for these types of facilities, and they do want alcohol there, and we have that available. And I certainly think that we should grant them what they're wishing.
Okay, how does the rest of the board feel? I would like to invite a motion. I'm mindful of the time. I think we should make a decision unless anyone wants to say anything else. Would anyone like to make a motion?
Well, I'll move. I don't have on this motion, I don't have the hours.
10 a.m. to 9 p.m., 7 days a week.
That's for the alcohol.
Alcohol service.
The regular business hours could always start at 8.
Yeah, it's just for the alcohol, not for business hours.
So now, all right, so I gotta, I'm going to add a codicil at the end of this, but move to approve the application of Bidham LLC DBA Golf Tavern for a new on-premises number 12 all alcohol annual license with hours to be, the alcohol license is 10 to
10 to 9.
10 a.m. to 9 a.m.
9 PM.
9, I'm sorry, 9 p.m. With Denchandra Thakur as manager, subject to the condition that license shall issue only upon completion of the premises according to said plan presented to the select board November 28, 2023, and the decision of the select board as to whether or not such plan has been complied with shall be final.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second? All right. No second. Would someone like to, another motion?
I would make a motion that we approve it at the set hours, the beer and wine license to start. There'll be that condition that they could come back once the business starts. Just trying to word it correctly. With hours to be verified with applicant,
Hours to be verified at 10 a.m. to 9 p.m.
verified at 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. With Dinesh Chandra Thakur as manager, subject to the condition that such license shall issue only upon completion of the premises according to said plans presented to the select board November 28, 2023, and the decision of the select board as to whether or not said plan has been complied with, it shall be final. And can I add, but that Mr. Thakur can approach the board at the start of the business, and we would revisit the full liquor license. I wish you well. I think you're gonna have a good business.
All right. Is that your
would be my
motion?
motion.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Excuse me, I didn't hear the beginning of the motions for a beer and wine, annual beer and wine license.
For an annual beer and wine. A motion to approve the application of Vinhan LLC DBA Golf Tavern for beer and wine annual license with hours of 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. all days, and then you got the rest. All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please vote aye.
Can I ask a question?
No, we have a pending motion, and then you can ask it.
Aye.
All those in favor, please vote aye.
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 All right, yes, you may ask a question.
I mean, from what I understood, you have got a limited licenses to be given to the community. And we asked for one of them. You are withholding the license for us till the time no one other applies.
You just got an annual beer and wine.
Yeah, that is it. But full liquor license
Yeah.
will be subject to what? How and when can we apply for the full liquor license?
So,
And
Mr. Grady, it was your motion, but what I would suggest is it still seems like you have some steps to go through, including the construction loan. You are still working through the plans. You're still working with the Board of Health. You're not open yet on the business. Mr. Grady had the motion that when you're fully ready, when the business is going to get open, why don't you come back and we can revisit the situation at that point.
I was gonna make a suggestion, say within 90 days after opening, to see, test your business model. And then you reapproach the board. I mean, we're all agreeable to your business. I'd say maybe within 90 days.
right, fine.
Yeah, so people come and say, hey, oh, you're only doing beer and wine, like bring that information back to us. And, that's something, particularly if it's high demand, you have a lot of people, that could be something too that we consider as well. We had a similar situation what was it, 2 weeks ago, where again, we were facing someone who wanted a license, and we went back and forth because we have such limited licenses in Cohasset at this point. So, we're trying to manage that carefully as we proceed. So that would be the suggestion for you all. It sounds like you're getting close to up and going, but you're not there yet.
Mid-December, they
Okay.
expect.
Okay,
We have the tech guys coming in on Monday.
Okay.
The installations.
Okay,
Everything will be done construction wise by mid-December.
okay,
And we already put a social media page up for our facility and email thing. And we have 231 subscribers who are asking for memberships.
okay.
And we have 1,000+ likes on Insta on our every post. And people are asking if we are going to have a bar and restaurant when we open. So we do have demand. We do have a lot of popularity and people inquiring about it. So, thank you.
Okay.
Is this membership only, or
No.
like you get a frequent card, you could be a
It
member?
will be like a membership, but membership will have its own perks. Members
Okay.
can have tea times well in advance, but compared to other people.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, if you want to reach out to the town once you're up and going and with, I think the 90
Say
days.
90
is-
days. So, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So this is not a members-only club?
It is not.
Okay, no, I just wanted to be clear on that.
It is not, it is not.
Okay,
Thanks so much.
thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
What I might suggest, next board, if anyone isn't trying to make a motion, I would suggest that we move to have the Cohasset Harbor Committee that I know we're running way over and is patient sitting in the audience, that we move up that agenda item and we'll do the budget message after. Would anyone be willing to make a motion to switch?
I would make a motion to switch the budget message behind Cohasset Harbor Committee and bring them up in front of us.
Is there a second?
Second,
All those in favor, please vote aye. Aye. Okay. George. Sorry, we're trying to,
No, it's good.
sorry about.
Happy to be here. Hi there. I'm George Baumgarten. I am Chair of the Harbor Committee and appreciate a chance to meet with you guys briefly. Understand we're time constrained, so I'll talk at this speed. I think, so I did send a document to Tracy and hopefully you may have something in your package. Justin might be able to bring it up. It's just a one-pager on our priorities. Is that something in a package? I didn't bring copies.
Yes.
yeah, there's a-
Great. That's it. That's it. Just briefly to sort of why we're here. So the Harbor Committee is a bylaws committee. We have representation, we have harbor masters on the committee, and then we have representatives from the organizations that surround the harbor, Cohasset Maritime, CSCR, the Yacht Club, the Sailing Club. We have a representative from the Recreation Commission. We have several open at-large members. We also have 2 seats for commercial fishermen, which are currently vacant. So that's our composition. Our role is as an advisory committee. We are to provide recommendations to the select board and to town meeting. So today I wanted to review priorities that we discussed at our meeting this month. And also the reason for that is because of our role, is to get feedback from you. What are we missing? What things on our priorities might we emphasize from your perspective on the select board? We also want to just do a brief update on a survey that we're doing to try and what our objectives are in that. You turn to the document. These priorities are, they're not quite in order, but they're things that we're focusing on. A key priority is harbor climate resilience and risk mitigation. We've been closely following this as a harbor committee for 2 years. We ran some public forums in 2022. From that came with some great work by the planning department, the planning department. The Woods Hole Group survey came from that identified risks to the harbor. And there's another grant that's been issued, hasn't had an opening meeting, that is building on that. And that is directly related to climate resilience at the harbor and really the potential risks to infrastructure, town infrastructure, as well as private property at the harbor. So we're quite focused on that. As you look at this document, you don't need to see on the right the cross-reference to the municipal harbor plan. That really was an important document. It's a guiding document for our harbor committee. It was finished and approved in 2020, and it still provides a great guideline, and we continue to reference that. The second, we've heard at both town meetings and others, we want to make sure that any capital needs that we identify in the Harbor Committee, that maybe we want to make sure they're on a list so that both you as a select board and the town meeting potentially has a sense of some of the capital needs that may be coming down the pike. C, the Captain's Walk. We've had a lot of public forums and success getting folks interested in that. Really, that's a general term for the whole path around the harbor and everything that's accessible from it. So the Historical Commission really defined the term back in 1980. They created a historical walkway called the Captain's Walk. And what we're looking at as a committee is thinking about how that could be an improved experience for anybody from Cohasset or visitors visiting the harbor, either to walk around it, to cycle around it, to access the harbor, to go boating, whatever the case may be. We see lots of opportunities for improvement. That being said, what our objective is to try and get in front of some of those thoughts to equip not only the select board, but other boards in town with some of the possibilities that are happening. So when commercial development comes through and has ideas, then it gives some basis for what could be done. We're simply monitoring the Butler estate. If that ever, changed in such a way that it became more publicly accessible, that would obviously be a very important asset from a Harbor Committee point of view. The MVP 2.0, which Montana Castle is managing, is something we plan to participate in. Harbor bylaws go back 30, 35 years. There's a number of them that are out of date. We're looking at them with the governance subcommittee and potentially going to be bringing forward some changes, working with the appropriate committees in town. We have out there as a general placeholder, Cohasset Situate intertown discussions and agreements, certainly a fraught issue. If the harbor right now, certainly recognizing the role that the select board is playing in that, if there were any opportunities for Harbor Committee to do things on a less high up basis or more informal basis to try and create some rapport with Situate, we would be very open to assisting with that. One of the big projects that's ongoing, the Government Island Pier, Lori Gibbons is really running with this. We have Foth Engineering who's coming up with designs for that. That's going to be very, let's say, the engineering plans are due in 2024. It's a big ticket item. It's important for the fishing fleet. It's important for all types of commercial fishing as well as aquaculture. And that's one that we're monitoring. And again, to get, if it comes to be, it'll require a lot of capital from the town. It will require a lot of support from the citizens to agree to something like that at town meeting, we would expect. So that's something that we're very aware of as Harbor Committee, that it's one thing for you to agree to it, but for town meeting and elections to happen and budgets to pass and overrides to happen, it's important to get, we see ourselves as potential advocates for projects that may not have other advocacy. So we're looking at that. The commercial fishing fleet, always managing the dredging multi-year plan. I think the thing that Lori keeps focused on is trying to get in front of that, because the channel does fill in. It creates challenges for the commercial fishing fleet, and the opportunity is to try and get a plan to stay ahead of that. There have been recent developments of the ability to dump sand much closer to Cohasset than there used to be, that creates some potential opportunities for us that didn't exist before. Shellfish bylaw, aquaculture, those are things that we're open to as priorities and wanting to look at. That's the one pager. So my feedback for you or request is if there's anything obvious that we're missing or things we should emphasize, we're quite open to that, obviously. These are the things we plan to focus on in 2024. I would also say we'd be happy to come back for a 5-minute in 2024 if you have other thoughts, since you're just seeing this for the first time.
Any thoughts from the select board?
I think laid out a yeoman's chore.
Ellen, anything? Jack?
Well done.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's, our focus is how do we effectively get some of the stuff done? So we'll keep you informed. I'd like to flip the page. We'll go down a little bit more, Justin. So one of the things that we're planning to do in early 2024 is propose a survey, electronic survey. Montana Castle has some experience with this through the town and will be helping. But a key thing on this is, Harbor Committee is not exactly a well-known committee in the town. So I think we want to, our objectives are to create awareness of the Harbor Committee, what our priorities are, and let the townspeople know there's somebody who's focused on this stuff. We want to demonstrate to you and to Chris and to others that we want to listen as broadly as we can to the people of Cohasset. And very importantly, we want to get away from sort of hearsay and what we think and what a few members of the committee think to a broader set of actionable data on what's important. Particularly in the area, this is focused on recreation. We have a pretty good data on a lot of the commercial things, but not a lot, just not a lot of actionable data on what people view as recreational opportunities at the harbor. So that's some key objectives. We're really looking at anything that people like to do at the harbor, particularly accessing it for water, any kind of water sports, walking, cycling, running around it, using the Parker Avenue boat ramp, feeling safe as they're accessing Captain's Walk, a focus on those with and without moorings, again, a fairly significant issue. Those are things we're looking at. We expect also, as part of our outreach, to collaborate with the Recreation Commission, with the Historical Commission, Open Space, Roads and Sidewalks. Those are people we'd like to enlist, both to support the survey as well as get it out to their constituents. Again, the objective is really just to, create more awareness both of our advocacy for the harbor as well as people's opportunity to influence that.
Well, I would say I think the actionable data is very helpful. There's definitely, I think, a lot that we think about the harbor, but we don't know, including who uses it, the frequency of use, the different types of uses, including as it relates to both commercial and recreational activities as well. I do think that will be helpful, particularly, and I think the select board will appreciate that, if we're coming before town meeting with big asks or big suggestions, having those facts is going to be really important, including how it benefits the Cohasset residents at the end of the day, including, for example, Government Island, who's using it, who's making money off of it, the commercial activity, is this local resident driven? So I think having that data is going to be really helpful. I would also say too that we know that in 2024, this is going to be a huge year for the harbor with the CHP project coming online. Hopefully the other project at Atlantica is starting to make some more traction too. One of the things that the CHP project has is now going to be public access in front.
Yeah.
Including an area for the first time really, at the harbor, public space.
Green space.
Green space.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a great opportunity for the harbor committee to think, and I'm not suggesting that you become event planners, but more like how to utilize that space towards your mission, including some of the other things that you care about, potentially, picking people up vis-a-vis surveying, getting the word out as to the Captain's Walk and that space and having more access to the harbor, because I think access is a huge issue for many people who might not otherwise realize new residents, people who are trying to figure out, you know, like how everything works, so to speak. So I think,
There's a lot of that's the way it is, you know, in this town. And also, you know, there's waiting lists for everything in terms of access to the harbor.
yeah. So I think trying to maybe collaborate with the select board and others like the rec commission, open space. I think these are all great ideas, not just on the survey, but really starting to try to figure out more opportunities for access for everyone, including those who might not otherwise be able to easily access the harbor. I think
Thank you.
parking is probably a big issue too. We haven't talked a huge amount about that, and I know that's a hot topic at planning board.
Certainly.
And so I think roads and sidewalks feeds into that, planning feeds into that.
We certainly are aware, yeah, if we're very aware of parking, it comes up every time somebody says they want to access it, you know, and it's just going to get a renewed focus when the commercial establishments go online at the harbor.
Yeah.
Fact.
Huh?
Fact.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that is something that the select board probably has to grapple with more in the village, and it's probably, it's a good thing because more people are gonna wanna use that area.
Yeah.
But at the same time, having a plan maybe to get ahead of the anticipated demand might not be a bad thing
Okay.
either.
Yeah, we ran some forums around Captain's Walk a year ago and got some really good feedback around potential ways to improve parking as an example. And again, what we're looking at, you know, if you probably are aware, maybe aware that Governor Healy just announced a new coastal resilience big initiative today. And there's been, you know, Cohasset's been successful at getting some grants. What we're sort of looking for is, you know, if a resilience grant came in that enabled something at the harbor and we could improve access while we're at it and potentially, you know, work with other groups to affect the light poles that are, you know, standing in the way of parking. You know, again, there's a lot of ifs and it's a lot of money, but if certain things happen, there may be opportunities that open up that otherwise we'd like to be in front of.
If I recall correctly, Mr. Grady, it's $1 million a mile to underground electric.
Yes, it is.
Lights,
Prohibitively expensive,
but,
which we had.
you know, maybe a fourth of a mile might be worth
Well, and
spots.
you know, if for some reason, you know, there was you know, certainly the Cove area is a big focus of climate resilience, or it's the second most risky area identified in the recent survey by Woods Hole. So if there was, you know, a decision at some point to upgrade or raise the seawalls there, you know, that might be a time to look at it.
Well, one of the things that's also important, and planning would be involved, but when somebody proposes something, they have to have parking. We've, in the past, and not just Cohasset, but Boston had problems with that. You approve a project, but you don't provide for parking. So I think it's important that, and I know we've talked about this, that the onus of creating parking is what whomever owns that property, what they own, the parking that they have. And they can't go ahead and put a new project in there without planning for parking. And what has happened a couple of times is they've had plans to use somebody else's parking. And I know the rowing club and the sailing club had some particular issues on that because there was one proposal that was going to take the parking that you're using. So, but I think that that's something that the Harbor Committee is very aware of, and it's a good, healthy thing for the town.
Thank you.
Anything else? Mr. Baumgarten, thank you.
Thank you for your time. All right.
Thank you. Contact us if anything arises. Right, now back to the budget message. So the select board has in its packet the prior message that did before town meeting and the special election, not knowing the outcome of the votes. That typically the process is that advisory will give us recommendations on the budget message. So we haven't gotten those from advisory. We need to circle back with them. They're probably, I would imagine, thinking through what change, if any, they want to make to the budget message or considerations for the budget message as a result of town meeting and the special election. So I would suggest we want to wait until we vote on it, probably maybe next meeting, and I'll reach out to them. But in terms of where we are right now on the budget message, does anyone have any preliminary thoughts or reactions?
Let's see what advisory has to say.
You want to wait for advisory?
Chris does.
They're meeting tomorrow.
They're meeting tomorrow. Is this on their agenda? Perfect. Okay. Okay.
I mean, I think a lot of it was based on special town meeting.
Yep.
And we just have to pull a few or reconfigure a few bullet points with regards to town hall. And what's going to happen there, I mean, everything else is going to happen. I think for me, what's really important for this budget message is one of scrutiny and conservatism. Is that a word? Based on what we've gone through and what we just heard about the tax assessment, I think it really behooves us to look at the town budget, have every department really scrutinize their own area, look at their FTEs. I don't think we should anticipate a big increase in FTEs this year. I know it's all we can do sometimes just to keep level services. That's always the bare bones minimum. And I think that we should, my personal feeling is we should convey a message to all the departments that it's appropriate to convey to that in-department maintenance budgets really need to be looked at and increased. We don't want to be here 10 or 15 years from now looking at the next building we have to spend $1 million on because we've deferred maintenance. And any or every extra penny should go into each department's own maintenance budget if there's any extra money. But that's my personal feeling. I think we need to turn the corner on this deferred maintenance conversation the town has been having. We've all been having. We had it in the schools, and we have to get ahead of it.
I would agree with that. I would say, and I would have thought that we did have that deferred maintenance plan put aside. But the voters thought otherwise.
Yeah.
I would suggest consideration of people who are still here and people at home that be a little bit easier. And I agree with the comment. We've got to take a good look at the budget. And I think after we go through the next couple of items on tonight's agenda, people will understand more of why we might want to be careful about our budget going forward. That's a tease to get people to stay around.
Mr. Plex, is there anything you'd like to add?
Nothing to add at this point, thank you.
Okay.
So come on
Okay.
up.
So, one thing I think we should make sure is that with the projects that the town voted on and wants us to proceed forward with, that we do have the appropriate resources to make sure we can get those over the finish line, including in a timely and efficient way. I think that's going to be really important. I think that some of that is, something that we can build into the proposal in terms of project maintenance, for example, with the police and fire. I think we do want to figure out if we're doing some of these bigger school capital projects, how we're going to effectively plan for that to make sure these are done well and
Right.
appropriately. I think on the same token, Ellen, to your point about FTEs, I think and this sort of dovetails into the vote that did not go through, I think we want to be thinking more carefully about how we deploy our existing FTEs, including, there could be some potential for remote work and to really, I think, have a way to make sure that the personnel that we do have are being efficiently deployed. I think that's something that we want to think about, including in the context of our capital needs as well. I'm concerned that we're stretching a few people pretty thin, and so I want to be mindful of how we utilize their time and press on them. And so I think that's something that we'll just have to manage. It's probably not going to be in the budget message. That's something that, Mr. Senior will have to collaborate on, but we do have a lot of things we're doing, right? 135 King Street, tennis courts, lacrosse wall, Beechwood Playground, school capital, roads and sidewalks. We're asking our staff to do a lot. Please.
Well, I would suggest that we start looking into setting appointments instead of a free-for-all coming in and out of town hall, what's left of it. Setting appointments to meet with personnel and people that work so hard in the town instead of just coming in and out the door, and limiting that sort of access, because we do have some ticket items that we got to do. Many of them are stretched thin. I agree with that 100%. Setting appointments and turning it away at the door. That's what I would suggest, or we can discuss that later on.
Yes, so I think we have to find the balance of managing the budget, including the FTEs, but also being mindful that we need to be efficient with the existing staff we have and respectful of the multiple demands we have on them. Okay. All right, so right now we're going to wait for advisory to provide some feedback. I think everyone should take a look, particularly at point 3, where we look at ongoing infrastructure planning and implementation, particularly as it relates to town hall, which is obviously no longer on the docket with respect to the pending proposal. The other thing that I would ask folks to look at is point 5. So this was one of our select board goals, and typically we associate goals with a budget item. I know, Ellen, you and I had some back and forth on this, including whether this should be in the budget message at all. We were talking about doing some community building, parade, et cetera. So think about if we want to have this in here, if we want to make it more general. I would just ask, folks to look at that and think about if and how we want to approach that. Okay. Any comments? Nothing? All right. We are at select board goals, review of special town meeting and town election results. So, we had a great turnout at town meeting. 2,100 people, probably the largest turnout we've had in multiple years at this point, which is a credit to all the Cohasset voters who came out and voted one way or another for the different proposals. So that was great. We had support for the 3 out of the 4 proposals. And I would suggest maybe we leave proposal 4, the town hall, until the end at the last item for discussion. Folks agree, and maybe we can just talk about how we want to move forward on that, which was voted on. Starting maybe with the rec projects. Michelle, I know you have some updates, including timelines, so it'd be great to hear from you on that.
Sure. So we met with Activitas. They are moving forward with surveying the property for the tennis courts, as well as the Beechwood Playground and the area for the lacrosse wall. They anticipate having a proposal to us the second week in December. I have reached out to Ronnie McMorris and others from Beechwood to see if we can form a small citizens group to help with, choosing the equipment that they've all seen and they've all done so much work on. We've also talked about shade structures at Beechwood, so I think their input is valuable to the project. And we're also looking at timelines, you know. We're gonna issue RFPs, we think, in February, which would mean tennis courts will start as soon as July 1, which means the school programs, even if they make it to tournaments, will still be completed by July 1. So the project right now, we're looking at a July 1 start for the tennis courts. Beechwood, we don't have a start date yet. I'd like to get some input from the community on that. And the lacrosse ball will also start around July 1.
So we're trying to time this around the existing school year so we don't interrupt
Yes.
them finishing. Okay, that's great. Are there any, yes?
I just have a suggestion that when the Osgood playgrounds were redone, we put in two different structures because Osgood houses a preschool, which typically is the age group that would go to Beechwood as well. And maybe Lisa Farrell might have some thoughts on what's, you know, or some information on what they did to pick the preschool structure at Osgood.
Certainly reach out.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. So now let's move on to school capital, which the school capital stabilization fund. Well, are there any updates?
So the update that I can provide is last Tuesday, I believe, there was a capital walkthrough. The school committee invited the capital budget committee to walk through and look at their priority list for FY25. They have a list of, I think, about 12 to 15 items. They've indicated which items they're going to ask the capital budget committee for, and they've also indicated the items that they'd like to take out of their newly approved stabilization fund. We're entering into our capital budget season where everything's going to be vetted. And they're working through the process with Brian Joyce and Nick Berardi to get quotes on all the items they're looking for.
Okay. And I think probably the first step in that process is that, if I recall correctly, in the stabilization fund, that it'd probably come to the select board first with advisory and capital, and we'd have and the school committee. And we'd sit down and all talk about it together when we think the time is right, when they have that list. We were aiming for the end of November, but that wasn't possible this year, given everything. And so that is the first step, including on the hearing that the select board will need to have when we set the amount for the next year. So that's something that we should communicate on in terms of when to get that up and going, because I don't want to let it slip too long, all things considered. So it's great that they have that list. And then everyone can provide their feedback, including on the schools should prioritize, because we're probably not going to have enough money, right? And then the select board can also give its feedback on what we think will be our proposed warrant articles on capital based on that feedback too, and then we can go from there. Questions, thoughts?
Yes,
Yes.
shocking.
Go for it.
I'm just looking at the list quickly, and I didn't bring Nick's list with me. I really only see one thing on this list that's on his list. And I think the driving force of the Special Purpose Capital Stabilization Fund should be the repairs and maintenance that come from his list. So we have to have a meeting of the minds on that in terms of, you know, some of these other things that are not specific to repairs and maintenance. Like, and they have the fire alarm system here. I think it says 100,000. I thought it was 500,000 on Nick's list, yeah. So this list is a starting point, but it needs, in my opinion, needs a lot of work.
Sounds like we need to do
Agreed.
some work before we have the bigger meeting.
So the deadline we set was December 1st for them to have their quotes in. So I know today they were looking at some of the ancillary items that aren't really a priority based on Nick's list. But Nick is going to revisit his list and provide us with some quotes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Michelle.
I think it'll
Sounds
be
like,
substantially different. I would agree.
yes, Mr. Dick?
I just want to point out, following our walkthrough last week with the school superintendents, superintendent, principals, and sports director, they pointed out that there are a number of sidewalk and road or curbing issues. And one point that they made very clear to us is that there has been disagreement on who is responsible, whose budget will absorb that. And that needs to be resolved. So I bring that up for your takeaway to get together with the school superintendent and with Brian Joyce and come to a meeting of the minds as to how do we attack those sidewalks and curbs that are really need these repairs ASAP.
So, I'm sorry, I have a follow-up question. So what does it mean, whose budget? Because the schools have never been funded for this. And in the past, any road and sidewalk repairs that are on school grounds have come from capital. So,
I don't know the answer to that. I'm just giving you the feedback that I took on that day. And maybe there's a misunderstanding, but that I think needs to be addressed. Maybe it's a question of getting together with Brian and saying, you know what? That's got to come out of your budget. And that was.
oh, out of Brian Joyce's budget as opposed to capital budget?
About roads and sidewalks now.
Oh, out of roads and sidewalk budget
I
as
was under
opposed
the
to
same
out of the
impression.
capital budget?
I was
That's the question, not out of the school budget compared to,
Not, not. the
yeah,
school
okay, got
operating
it.
budget.
Understood, thank you.
Mr. Senior? No. Okay,
I was under the impression that it always came out of capital as well, and that's what we were told, that it comes out of capital. Brian Joyce
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
well.
yeah.
Okay,
So there's three places it can come: school stabilization fund, road and sidewalk fund, and the capital stabilization fund. And the question is which one?
correct,
Um,
There you go.
Yeah,
got it.
yeah. I think that's probably the only one that's like a significant crossover issue where we had three potential funding sources. Okay, so it sounds like we need to keep focused on the school capital items as we veer into the next year. So the road and sidewalks, maybe this is a question for you, Mr. Grady. I know that you probably haven't had a chance to have a road and sidewalk committee follow up after.
No, not after the meeting. My suggestion is we do the same. We get Brian Joyce, roads and sidewalks in, we
Yeah.
start looking at the priority list. If we have to
Right.
readjust it, we readjust it, find the best ways to allocate it.
And we know, for example, we've got South Main coming up, which could easily take $1 million.
South Main could take
In
$1
a
million.
second.
We could do that with North. We could do it with sidewalks along the common. So we really have to prioritize. And if we have South
Yeah.
Main coming up, that's gonna eat up a lot.
Yeah, that's, I'd be surprised if it comes in at $1 million.
Oh, I think you're absolutely right. We
Yeah.
also have, say, number of streets.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe that's something that we need to nail down in January-ish. We probably need to get quotes too from the paving contractors so we can see what we can,
Well, I think Brian
Actually,
Joyce has got quite a few of them.
he's
that-
got them,
yeah,
okay,
so.
okay. So maybe we'll let you guys have your meeting and then maybe mid-January-ish, we can do something on that. Does anyone have any questions about roads and sidewalks? Okay. The, no, 135 King Street.
So 135 King Street, we're going through the final inspection period, so we have a 30-day inspection period. And I think really what we're looking at now is to settle on a closing date. And decide, what the best date is for the town, what the best date is for the building owner as well. So I think that's really the next step.
And we need to get our financing lined up on our end in terms of the applicable paperwork. Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes?
can I make a comment or an observation?
You know what, Mr. Dick, you're gonna have to come up here because people
Sure.
can't hear. We're getting comments from the public that if you talk from the audience, people online won't be able to hear.
Hi, thank you. Mike Dick, 27 Parker Ave, Vice Chair of Capital Budget. As Capital Budget deliberated on that warrant article for 135 King Street, we were concerned about the lack of detail in the budget and the lack of plans. And we would like to have a better handle on how the $6 million projected cost plus the $2 million contingency will actually shape out as we go. So just a suggestion coming to me as a citizen would be to perhaps have some reporting at set intervals to see how the spending is going, certainly to see how the planning is going, so that we have clear plans and know what we're about to spend money on. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Mr. Dick.
Thank you.
So the first step is to actually acquire title to the property. And so this is where we're at, but I take your point. So we're trying to finalize that closing and the applicable paperwork. And in terms of the next steps after that happens, what do you envision?
So I think that's a bigger conversation, but I think, so we've gone through some of the programming.
Yep.
We have to do some sort of a small study, as you would with any building.
Yep.
And continue with the programming efforts. And they say the design piece takes up to a year and a half.
Yep.
So we have a long haul still before we're going to see any actual numbers. I think the next number you're going to see associated with the budgeted number is some sort of design concept.
Yeah, and we knew going in that this was going to be a long haul, given the multiple steps in the process. Okay. Okay. Are there any questions the select board has? Okay. Why don't we move on to, and just to be clear, this is a process that goes outside of the town warrant process because the project has been voted on and the money has been allocated. And so the reporting will just really come directly to the select board at this point with respect to that renovation project. Although I could foresee that we might want to do something along the lines of something with the chiefs, including on the programming and other reporting, not just, and I don't want to say just you, but like not put it all on you, Michelle, in terms of that process.
So in prior public planning conversations, we've had a plan for public information and reporting, and that will be developed as part of this as well. It's really important the community understands what's going on.
Yeah.
And that's just, I think, a natural part of a professionally run project. So
Yeah.
where I guess, as you point out, Madam Chair, it's really early.
Yeah,
We still have to buy
yeah,
the property
yeah,
and
Yeah.
and the design stages first. That said, robust public information is really part of what we're going to do going forward.
Okay. Thank you, Michelle and Chris. Questions following from that? No. Okay. Town hall. So we know what happened there. We got, the town meeting supported it. The election, the unofficial results were, it failed by 10 votes. And I think it's fair to say the town is divided almost equally in terms of those who came out to vote. So here we are. We have still an issue to be resolved with respect to our town hall and those who work in our town hall. As has been laid out numerous times, our town hall has some critical issues, including life safety issues, particularly fire suppression. We know we got a quote, as I talked about at town meeting, for 1.5 million for fire suppression that needs to occur on our existing building. That building is non-compliant right now with applicable laws. So if anything ever happened, the cost to the town could be substantial. So let's talk about the fire suppression quote real quick. So fire suppression is one component of that quote in terms of work that immediately needs to happen to bring town hall up to speed. Are there other associated costs with the fire suppression and the upgrade of the necessary systems?
So I think in meeting with our building inspector, John Hallen, he indicated that, once you upgrade the sprinkler system, there are other systems that come into play, such as the electrical system and other components that I can't even recall at this point in time, but it's not just fire suppression. It's fire suppression plus electrical plus.
Plus all the downstream
The alarms,
consequences.
connectivity
Oh,
to the
the
fire
alarms,
department.
yes.
He said that the electrical units were not done correctly back in the 80s when the place the annex was built. Extremely expensive if you could do it at all. Am I incorrect in that?
So one of the things that Inspector Allen pointed out is that when this was done in the 80s, they didn't even meet code then. They didn't properly separate the buildings. There's actually a door, which I've never even paid attention to, that on the first floor by the entrance, that is technically a fire door, but they never put one in the basement or the second floor, or did any of the measures 40 plus years ago. So we can't go back to those, unfortunately. You can't. So everything has to be brought up to current code.
So, in other words, we're not looking at a quick $5 or $6 million fix. That'd be my guesswork. Am I incorrect in that? I doubt it.
I mean, the estimates that have been presented time and time again are talking about a number that's north of $15 million. That is not hyperbole. It's not made up. It's real. And because once you start peeling the onion, unfortunately, it triggers other things. And once you hit a threshold, the billing's assessed at $1.7 million. Once you hit a certain threshold,
30%.
and you're going to trigger every other piece of code compliance. And that's, again, that's something that's been publicly talked about for years. It's not nothing new. And it's just an unfortunate reality.
And that 1.5 million, just to put in the sprinkler system, that was just bare bonesing it. That wasn't
Right,
replastering, that was just pipes
correct. That's
going
no
right
car-
overhead,
that's
something
no
you can bump
carpentry
into or.
associated with- correct.
So this is what we did when we voted no.
So, okay, so here we are, and the issue facing the town right now, not just the select board, but really the town of Cohasset is, we have, it strikes me, a variety of must-dos in town hall, which may necessitate the relocation of our town employees in order to do this work, among other things. And so we have to think through the various options that we want to pursue. We have options such as relocation of our town employees, and this is where I was also thinking about some remoting some employees to save on sort of the relocation costs, what that might look like. We have options to try to find a more permanent solution for our town hall employees, a more permanent repair solution to our town hall in general. So I'm just going to open it up to the board and see if any folks have some
Comments or
impressions.
suggestions?
Yeah,
Comments or suggestions?
either one.
Again, I just think it opened a can of worms. I think we sent a clear message on that no vote as to what we thought of what was going on and the people that were in the building. It's the third or fourth go around, and I think that we came up with one heck of a plan. But that didn't meet certain people's criteria. People had no suggestions. So I would welcome them. No?
Yes, Ms.
Just-
Scorpio?
Beth Tarpey, 12 Bates Lane. I think your plan was good, and I think a lot of people were ready to move forward with a solution. I think the piece that scared people was they don't want someone mentioned at the town meeting, selling the old town hall or something. I think that a lot of people felt uncertain about what your plan was for the original town hall, and no one really wants to see it go away. They want something to be done with it. Like, everyone I talk to wants you to take CPC money and fix up the old part of the town hall. Whether you tear down the annex and say, we're done with it, we're fine. The original part of the town hall is what everyone's really focused on. And your new building solution, I thought was very creative, but I think there was still a lot of questions there about how's the apartments gonna work, but I think you were in the right place, and that's why I think it got by town meeting, but I think people walked away and said, we're scared about the old town hall.
So can I ask you, what's your opinion if, and maybe this is what we need to do, just ask everyone their opinion. What if we could still have an option to do something with One Pleasant Street? That maybe didn't involve the units, but just the first floor. And at the same time, we tried to come up with a plan for the old town hall. Just the auditorium that I think a lot of people are focused on, which may be harder than it sounds, in terms of like a quick plan, because if, for example, we're working with a nonprofit, just knowing the nonprofit space, it's not like they can immediately like flip on it's not like they can access funds quickly in order to do something themselves, but there could be something there, if we were to do something. And so do you think a combination of something, maybe whether it's at One Pleasant or another building that may provide an opportunity, combined with a modest plan for the town hall?
I think that's would appeal across the board more. I don't think anyone wants the Taj Mahal town hall.
Yeah.
So I think there has to be some other compromise that makes sense. And I think your idea to try to spread the tax increase out across a lot of things that need to be done is a good idea, and people responded to that.
To add, on the town hall, and that was a fear factor, but we publicized that in forums that there was no plan to do away with town. There was some misinformation spread, putting a fear factor into people that we were going to tear down, sell, destroy, do whatever we were going to do with town hall. I understand that.
Yeah.
It became clear there was no way just to be on the same page.
I know, but I think there wasn't anything concrete that anyone could. People were hearing more like we haven't decided what we're doing with it yet. So that left a vacuum.
That was filled by misinformation.
I didn't actually hear any misinformation. It was more like I said I thought your plans were to reuse it, whether you said temporarily, maybe as office space, or there's things that can be done there without spending a fortune, I think.
How do you think the town would feel about, let's say we temporarily relocate the employees and then we just repair the existing town hall, but it's going to cost 15 million? How do you think the town would react to that?
I think that's probably a lot of money. I don't know. That's then circle back to the capital budget people. But I think when you threw out, you sort of had maybe this 10 million solution that people got in their head that number, but.
The town didn't approve 12 and a half in 2018, so.
That was 2018.
Yeah. But cost of money now from then, it's up. So.
But then the most recent proposal was it went to the other extreme, which everyone was like, whoa. So, and I think people are more concerned about the schools, and, they're like, do we really need a big town hall? I understand we do need an administrative space.
I think you've hit on an important issue, which is that there are other priorities. My brief experience on the select board is leading me to the conclusion that we just need to start making some investments that haven't been made in the past. Is that a message that you think the town is ready to hear?
I think so, because
the town hall proposal not long ago sure sounded like it was because you got the wrong priority order. And then this one, I don't know if there was opposition there because even the 10 million, less than 50% of the previous proposal was too expensive.
I don't know, I think it was more the question marks that you didn't have everything nailed down. I think that's what sunk you, was there was still a lot of floating details out there that weren't addressed.
Filled in the blanks.
Yeah, and I felt like if you had geared this to the spring and got all the stuff lined up, it would have been better, but I think you were up against the timeline on the Pleasant Street building, so that sort of.
But I do get the sense that there's a limit to how much the town is willing to invest, because when you go back to the previous proposal, the 26 million proposal, God knows how much that would be now.
Yeah.
That's clearly too much.
Yeah, that and it wasn't even factoring all the payback money.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And people, the school is more important across the board to everybody, schools. That's the bread and butter of the town. So
As a realtor, you would know that.
that's why people come here.
People come here. It's for the schools.
I also just want to thank you. We're asking you to represent a lot of people.
Yeah, I know, when people are probably walking in, going, well,
Unfair.
who told her this is what we're saying? But this is sort of,
Well, maybe this is the message to the select board. We want to go out and get,
I think you do. You need
Yeah.
to get more feedback.
and figure out what were people really concerned about? Was it really the fact of Mount Pleasant and something new and moving the municipal services from the common, or was it more, hey, we want a real plan surrounding the existing town hall?
I think it was all of the above. I think there was some of that. Some people were like, oh, I can't picture anything except being on the common. Some people were like, I'm okay with that. It would be an efficient little space. Parking could be an issue, but you still need to have that presence on the common, the historic building, if nothing,
Madam Chair, if I could echo part of what you said a few minutes ago about making sure we get the broad input from a lot of people saying, what's your opinion? I think one of the challenges we ran into was that misinformation, the misunderstanding, and motives that at times didn't seem completely transparent. So by reaching out to more people, getting more opinions directly from people and having that conversation, hopefully we can cut through that and knock down some of the misinformation that killed the last proposal.
Well, I think all your meetings were a good idea, but again, I think it was too condensed a timeline. And then it felt like we were at town meeting and then we were voting. It was like quick.
Well, part of the problem, of course, we're faced with when we're dealing with all these situations, suddenly we had an opportunity that One Pleasant Street kind of came out of the blue. So we kind of rushed to get that. But the fundamental driving behind this is the office space for the municipal employees, which is now in Town Hall, is a kind of a generic type of office space. You don't need the grandeur of the Town Hall for that. So we need to be able to hive that off. The other thing that drives costs, and it really would drive the cost of Town Hall, is when a municipality does anything, it pays prevailing wages, it has a whole variety of very, very expensive mandates that it must do, which it at least doubles the price. So the trick is to get the old Town Hall maybe into a historical trust. That, because the town is very clear they want to save that, but trying to save that within the budget and the mandates of a town budget is extraordinarily expensive. And the other thing is, if the beauty of Pleasant Street is we were able to buy a property that was built without all those mandates. That's why we got the opportunity, which is to acquire a $20 million building that would have cost us to build for 10. Now, there is a possibility, and this would be interesting, we'd be interested to hear what people think, whether maybe we approach One Pleasant Street. He's got an empty building there. Maybe we lease just office space and we just be an office tenant. That's always a good idea. That way we don't have an override, we don't tie up capital in it. we're just paying going rates for leasing. I mean, is that something that, I mean, you're a realtor, you would know. We would know.
I don't know.
If I could just respond to Jack briefly. So, Jack, I think you raised good points for the conversation. One of the things that I'm worried about is that there seems to be a group that's interested in spending as little money as possible. And then there's another group that seems to be interested in having a really nice town hall. So if we're leasing space, you might run into that again. But that's all part of the getting a broad range of opinions from people so we can have clear guidance on what might succeed the next time around.
Well, Chris, the leasing space is only leasing the office space and lease it at a generic cost as opposed to a inflated cost. But anyway, this is a thing we'd reach
And
out
Ms.
to the
Tuppy, we don't want to
community.
trap you.
Yeah, and I don't want to be the front and center.
Somebody, yes.
Thank you,
And
thank
your
you.
husband has had his hand.
One thing I think the select board should consider is a survey, a town-wide survey to say, hey, following from the vote, we want to invite your input. Here are some options we want to propose, but there's a fill in the blank. If you've got another idea, maybe, 3 options that we put out there. I'm going to take a gander at 2 of them. I would suggest one option could be, we find a way to relocate the town employees and we repair the existing town hall, likely at a cost of anywhere between 10 to 15, closer to 15, most likely, once you add up all the repairs. And we can put out an RFP and we can make certain what that cost is and who's willing to work for it, instead of speculating about what the cost might be for all of the repairs necessary for town hall, whether it be fire suppression, electric, plumbing, roof, windows. We know there's a long
But
list.
that's a
More
prevailing
complicated
wage.
than that, but yes.
But multiple are, like that, this could be like the vision of how we would do this, right? Like it could be over a long period of time. You probably need to vacate town hall, maybe for a year, multiple years as we go through and do a lot of work on it, to sort of fix it up one at a time, because I would imagine, given the amount of work needed, you couldn't just do that. So that would be one option. Yeah, a second option would be, we relocate our town employees permanently to a space that is, let's say, for example, the bottom of 1 Pleasant Street. And we go back and see if the owner is interested in working with us just on that, or another comparable space, if one exists. And we'll propose something as it relates to the town hall that would be a non-municipal services solution, but still oriented towards a community asset of some sort, whether owned still directly by the town. And I think we probably have to put some numbers around it, because people are concerned about, like, what's the price tag of these options that we're dealing with, So those are sort of the 2 solutions that I think are the
Spending
obvious.
town money and trying to come up with a solution for the old town hall.
Yep.
While we relocate. We had it done at one swoop. The gentleman had his hand up.
Yes, Mr. Dick? Yeah, please.
Again, Mike Dick, 27 Parker Avenue. I came here tonight to offer some suggestions, some observations on this particular situation. I've spent the last week or so talking with other people who are active in town boards and committees, trying to assess what we should offer to the select board as our leaders, as our recommendations for a way forward. The first thing that comes up is getting good data. We have a lot of guesses. We also have this EBI report from 2018 that Clark Brewer offered. We don't know how real all that is. What I would suggest is that we take a similar approach that we have with the school, with the middle high school, and actually come up with a punch list, and we've already started on, fire suppression, definitely, and all that. Let's come up with a prioritized punch list. And I was very pleased to hear you say, Jean, let's see if it can't be spread out over 2 or 3 years, and take that as perhaps take that as a way to structure this, knowing that, I hate to say knowing that, feeling that the town really doesn't support a move away from 41 Highland Avenue. And that's what I heard a lot, was that people were reluctant to find another location. I'm just putting that out there. That seems to be a starting point in my view. You may disagree, but that's what it's feeling like here. I understand all of the strong constraints that you are facing now. And I think there are a number of people of goodwill who are on some of the other boards that would like to come together and perhaps help you figure this out.
You.
I actually just said other people on other town boards.
That's singular.
I'm also happy to help. Very happy to help. And I'm here tonight to try and offer some observations and suggestions. So that's why I'm here tonight, was to offer that suggestion. I'll certainly offer my time. I'm happy to help. And the other thing I'm happy to do is have an open mind. You can't argue with the truth is an axiom I've worked with for a long time. And if the data sets show that, you know what you're suggesting doesn't work, Mike, I'm more than willing to say, okay, I understand, and move on and find another way, find some other way. So thank you for listening. And let's see if we can't get this done.
Mike, and I think, listen, if you're talking to people that are willing to volunteer their time to help with the solution, they should reach out to Chris and Michelle. And that's something that, the select board has many things to do, but not a lot of time, unfortunately. Yes.
Oh, Jean, just to interject, if we're going to get ideas, one price that I've never seen is a study of what it looks like if we keep the old town hall and we knock down the annex. I've never seen this study, and Michelle, maybe you have.
Does that mean losing the space for the drama and outfitting that as town offices?
You, just the standalone to do the old,
Right, but as town offices or as community space?
as community space.
Okay.
And then get rid of the annex entirely if we were able to find another place for those. I mean, we've never gotten a price for that. That would be helpful, if nothing, a benchmark. Because we do have kind of a price to do the whole building, which was turned down a year ago overwhelmingly. So, but anyway, that's just, sorry.
No worries. Thank you, sir. Dan Tarpey, Bates Lane. I'm probably not telling anybody anything new when I say there is a certain level of town hall exhaustion amongst the population of Cohasset. That's why I thought that your plan for Pleasant Street was brilliant, because it comes down to cost. It really does. What's scaring the voters of this town from the cheap seats is the 800-pound gorilla called the schools. We all know it's going to cost $100 million to $300 million, depending upon what option is chosen to fix the schools, and that bill is coming due soon. So again, Pleasant Street was a great idea. Moving the police station at the cost up to 3.8, brilliant. All of those things, I'm shocked that the town hall didn't pass. Maybe not so shocked now that I've been sitting here in the chief seats this evening and whatnot. But it comes down to cost. And that's why Pleasant Street was a great thing. If you can lease the space or re-engage the owner or something like that, I think that you've got a great option.
I'll put you in the same position that I put your wife earlier. If we could do something very similar to One Pleasant at a lower cost, do you think that would be sufficient to win the support of people who want to reserve capital for the preservation of Old Town Hall?
That's a great question, and I don't know. I think that, again, I was surprised that the Town Hall Initiative didn't pass. I do think it's coming, again, to cost balanced against other priorities that we all know are coming. I don't think 41 Highland or renovating the existing town hall at the prices mentioned in the last couple of years is going to fly with the voters. They know that it's going to come down to a question of allocation of resources, and the schools are going to take priority. So if we can move into Pleasant Street at the cost that you guys had negotiated, I think that was a winner for everybody.
We thought so too, Mr.
Yeah,
Harvey.
well, again, thanks for listening to me.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
I think we're seeing an interesting dynamic, though, that probably reflects what is the vibe in the town, right, of trying to balance cost versus history. And Mr. Domitzer, I saw you raise your hand if you want to come up. Maybe what we need to do, I think to Mr. Dick's point, is start putting real price tags on what all of this stuff means, because
Yeah, I think people need to.
including a repair solution, which I think might be more expensive than people realize.
Ralph Dormitzer, 111 Atlantic Ave. I probably echo your thinking in many ways. I think at the root of the problem is the lack of options for people and a rigorous examination of all the options. And I think that whether I would be willing to serve on a committee or somebody else, I do think it's important that the number of options could be 4 or 5, could be several, as it turns out, and that all of those should be examined in such a way that their cost and feasibility be seriously considered, rather than, in fact, just do a survey at this time until you have a survey which has concrete data associated with it. If you are building a building, you would do that. If you were investing in something, you would do that. In fact, we're investing in something. It's time to, in fact, do something that, in fact, looks like an investment and with several options available to it. So that would be my view. So I would say be rigorous about this. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to make sure the chair's all right with me speaking.
Yeah, please.
So I appreciate your input. I do want to challenge it, though, because my impression from speaking to folks about the town hall issue is that no amount of analysis, no amount of data would shift people from positions like, I just want it at 41 Highland Avenue, or I just want the minimum amount of money spent so that the money can be reserved for the schools, or I just want the minimum amount of money spent. My impression is that those are positions that are unlikely to change with additional, more granular analysis. But I'd be happy to hear your opinion.
Of course, I respectfully disagree with you. I think it is essential that people know exactly what are the options available, whether it's in fact just to do town hall, whether it's the annex to fix the annex, or what you have to do, or what you're going to do about the, in fact, we don't have a number associated with restoring the historic structure. We don't have a real number associated with repairing the annex. We don't have a real number associated with any other serious option out there. We don't. We just don't. These are right. I've heard all the discussion, right? And I'm listening. I'm saying, wait a minute now. Am I hearing it correctly that there are some hand waves here, but there are no specific numbers attached to it? And whether I'm unique in this, I'm not unique in it. I can tell you there are an awful lot of people who call me up and say, this feels like it needs almost a zero-based balance kind of look at things here. So, and it is how people look at it. Maybe we're just all financially oriented, but rightly or wrongly.
Wait, I would like something to say about that.
All right, Mr. Grady, then Mr.
All right, so what happens there, Mr. Dormitzer, all right, is continuous roundabouts. They've gone through about 3 or 4 iterations now. Each one of those iterations costs the town money, lots of money. So we do 5, 6, 7, how many you're suggesting?
As many as there are reasonable
Cost
to
the
be
town
done.
money.
Right.
So if people that come up to say, I just don't want to pay tax, or I just don't like the shape of that road, so I'm not going to support these roads and committees, or anything along those lines, or this town hall, just because I don't like it, or I don't want to pay tax. So then you're going to get nailed for spending town money on a proposal that may not pass. This happened in what, 16, and it happened last year. So they spend a fortune. So we do it on another. We restore the old town hall. We spend a fortune on presenting that. That gets shot down for some reason or another, gets voted down. We spend another fortune on placards and everything else on another iteration. So where does it stop?
May I make a suggestion that you take advantage of the talent in the town and not hire any more architects to do this? Why don't we take advantage of people who are here, who are willing to do it, who know what they're talking about, and who would do it free? Why not? Why don't we try that?
When did that ever come? In all these iterations, I'm just asking for my own education. I have not heard that offer.
Would you you know the one I'm talking about, right?
Sorry?
You know the one I'm talking about.
Well, I will say that the last committee, we did have some very talented people on it, including Mr. Cameron, for example, who does public construction for a living. And we consulted with him, including as to the cost of replacing the existing town hall based on the projections he had gotten from the OPM that we hired for $1 million.
No.
And that cost was approximately 18 to 20 million just to repair the town hall as is, which was the basis for my representations to town meeting, that's why I thought it was a very substantial amount. Now, he was doing an estimation based on literally going through and bidding every part of the historic town hall. So we know what that number is because we got the full plans, we went to bid to the market. And so we know what the market says for Old Town Hall, which was quite substantial. The repairing the annex, we did not go to the market for the full out bid because a part of my concern is we might think what it should cost, but that's not what people are willing to work for, especially in a town like Cohasset with a bid like a town hall where we're getting these high bids because they don't think we're serious and they don't think that we're going to pass these votes. And so we're getting the Cohasset increase plus, given our history of being able to take responsibility for this town hall. And it's being reflected in the prices we're being given in bids. So we're sort of swimming upstream a little bit in this process, even with the repair solution, which may be a good solution. And I do think we have to start itemizing all of what we think it's going to cost. And we've got a lot of information already through the prior April bid process. But I think what you hear Mr. Grady saying is we're reluctant to lose a year, have the prices go higher, ask town meeting to spend more money on a study, which they're just not going to want to do. And I don't blame them. I wouldn't want to do it either. I would want to see people being willing to put their money where their mouth is on a repair solution. Sort of like what we did with the police and fire station. This is an all-in number. We're going to make it work. And we have a basis for doing it because people are worn out. They're worn out with this issue.
I was actually going to say a very similar thing, having, overseen a good part of the previous iteration and watching, trying to get approved for, $500,000 type of studies. And unfortunately, Ralph, if we could spend a couple $1 million because those studies have to be very exact and they're very expensive. Nobody's going to do it. And I appreciate part-time people who are very skilled donating their time. But we've seen that, and that can work, but it requires the backup that Gene was just referring to. And we saw it on the other things. We do have some structural things that aren't going to go away. Number one, it costs so much for a municipality to do that. So we have to be aware of that. Do we want to spend that kind of money on basically utilitarian office space, just generic, you can buy it off the shelf. That's what we need for most of town hall. Town hall, the historic town hall is a different thing. And as you know, Ralph, I've suggested that you might consider stepping to the plate and working on putting together a historical conservation trust. And I suggested that to you, and that would be a very good thing. And then CPC money could do that. But if you want to do something where a citizen can make a difference, that would do it. And that's the best way, most cost-effective way to save Old Town Hall, which we all want. But, and to what Dan says about the costs, we have to look at the costs of various options, and we have to pick the low-cost option that works here and there. And yes, we have a lot of work and a lot of listening to do, but I think that we have the capability to do that. And as a matter of fact, whoever you thought about the elections happened, the people spoke, and that's the deck of cards we're dealt with, and we have to skillfully deal it. So go to work with your wife.
I guess the question is, do you want to have dedicated citizens or not help you with this? Are you saying no? Are you saying yes?
Depends, I think, on the citizens and the openness and the expectations they bring to the process that I think we have different citizens in different camps, some of which may be opposing with each other. You know, if we had the yes and the no's all together, we could have gridlock on a committee like that with very talented people, well-intentioned on both sides. I think that's a struggle that I think I'm trying to figure out how to.
Yeah. What I would say is this, have at it.
I need,
Get your group
in order for it to
Tell them
be,
that
in
you
order
asked the
for,
question, Ralph, let me finish.
all right.
Get your group together and make your presentation. I would definitely, you're free to do that. So why don't you get a group together?
That's interesting.
And then you present it to the select board. It may be something that we hit right out of the ballpark. It might be.
So all we would need is to say that somehow there is a sanction on the part of this committee, that in fact you would be welcome and open to something of that nature.
I would say that we would be happy to see anything that any citizen wants to present to the board. That's what I would say. If you're looking for a charge, I can't say that, but I would just say, because they're not creating
something.
But
And do the type of deep research that you said was needed.
That's right. So I need some sort of a statement which actually empowers it and has some meaning associated with it. That's what I
If
need.
I can ask that, before we consider such a statement, we would ask that the representation of that group be conditioned on truly being representative of the town. And the challenge is going to be that there are families with 2 working parents and young children who don't have the time to engage in this sort of thing. And those families are also likely to prioritize school investment and cost savings. So that's going to be a challenge for you to find a representative group to really come forward with something that could win an election on this kind of issue.
May I suggest that I look at it very differently? It's a skill level question. It's legal skills, it's construction skills, it's design skills. And it's a skills question, really. And although that could well incorporate numbers of people from different points of view, it's the skill level question for me. That in fact, this group is knowledgeable enough and deep enough so that in fact, any proposal that would come forward or any group of proposals that were investigated would actually have some credibility behind them, not just opinions, but credibility.
The hard part is, respectfully, that leaves out the hard part, which is, will a $25 million proposal pass or will a $10 million proposal pass? We've seen both fail. So do you need something in the middle or do you need to go farther in one direction or the other? That's not a skill question, that's a representation question.
And it's a political question, and I think to some degree, you might have to put that on the table. This is the political answer here, right? Not what we do, but in fact, what you think the public is willing to accept. I don't know, you understand where I'm coming from on this one. Go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit because I've been having thoughts as you've been speaking and as my colleagues have been speaking. You know, one of your first comments was, you know, we should have presented every option and every choice out there to the voters. That's not what you do as a board, as leaders of the community, is you vet every idea and you come up with the best solution, which this happened to be a very creative solution. That doesn't mean that we as a board didn't look at multiple other options, of which the chair of your capital budget committee was part of those conversations all during the summer. So there were multiple other options that were looked at, that were vetted, that were not as appropriate a solution as the one we put forth. And as the leaders of the town, that's what you do. And we failed by 10 people. So let's not also say that everybody wants it still on town common. We failed the vote by 10 people, by 10 unofficial, is that the proper language? 10 unofficial votes. So half the voters didn't care if town hall remained on 41 Highland Ave. They thought the idea was creative. And I think to Mrs. Tarpey's point of view, it was the question mark about 41 Highland. It wasn't about 1 Pleasant Street. It was the question mark of 41 Highland that swayed voters when they got to the ballot on November 18th to vote one way or another, because it did pass by 2/3 at town meeting. So that's the question we need to answer. It's not that moving off of the common, off 41 Highland is an issue for the voters. It's what happens to 41 Highland if we move somewhere else. So that's my first thought and my comment about presenting all options to the committee. I think it would have been ludicrous for us to get up there and say, well, we have Article 5, which is 1 Pleasant Street. We have Article 6, which is a $20 million renovation to 41 Highland. And we have Article 7, which is a $5 million fix to 41 Highland that doesn't improve programming space or doesn't address all of the issues that need to be. I don't think that's leadership. And that's my personal opinion. And I'm speaking for myself here. Okay, so I want you to understand that. And then I said this long before in an earlier meeting, I would be, I'm going to backtrack. I respect immensely everyone who steps up to the table and volunteers their time and talents and energy to town government, because it can't run with the people who are on the payroll. And that means you, Mr. Dormitzer, and your very long, dedicated and devoted history to the town of Cohasset, of which I'm aware of, and you, Mr. Dick, as well. And I'm hoping Mr. Tarpey might get engaged in one of the many committees we have that have openings, because you have a very reasonable voice. And so I would respect anyone who wants to step up and form a think tank about how do we handle 41 Highland Avenue. And, but I would be hard pressed as a select board after watching 3 or 4 town hall building committees charging another citizens group with a charge to explore what has been explored ad nauseum, okay, only to be shot down. And same with the Elm Street Working Corridor Group. They spent their time, energy, and efforts, and that went nowhere. So I have this personal concern about wasting people's time. I have no time in my life right now. So I really respect people's time. And if you can put together a citizens group, a think tank group, I like the approach of experts in the field. I do agree with Mr. Plexus. You have to sprinkle in some of the electorate in there so that you have a balance. I would support that, but as a select board member, I would not participate in putting forth a charge and creating a group officially.
And I do want to be mindful too that.
I'm sorry?
That would kill it. If you're not willing to accept it, it's not worth doing.
I'm not saying we wouldn't be willing to accept it. We would hear it like we would hear every other group. But
I think it has to be a more positive affirmation.
So you're looking for a charge, all right, which is a further drain on town resources. Instead, you talked about a citizens committee, Ralph. I mean, that's getting your group together, coming up with a plan, presenting it to the select board. I don't understand where you want to create another committee. We have had committees after committees after committees ad nauseum. They go nowhere for the most part. And so what this committee would be doing is going back and forth to town, asking for town resources, taking up their precious time when they don't even really have a place to live. All right, you've been in that building. All right, it's had it. It needs some attention. We all know that. That's what your committee or your ad hoc committee could come up with, present it to the town. You said you have a list of geniuses. My suggestion is from different walks. I'm not saying that to be, but different walks of life. If you want to sit down and present something, the board's more than willing to accept that. But to take a charge, I wouldn't do it because, again, you'll be utilizing their resources and they've got precious enough time as it is.
I hear no.
You're not hearing no. You're hearing form your committee and do what you're going to do. It doesn't have to be a formal committee. You make a presentation, you come in with a big sheet of paper or
I
architect
think I've been
drawings.
through that before, as you know.
So, all right.
And
Okay.
no, we didn't.
Sorry. But anyway, without bringing up past history, you understand where I'm coming from. I don't need to debate it anymore. I'm looking at a prospective thing. I'm not looking at past. I'm not looking at what options should or should not have been presented at town meeting. I'm saying, I'm proposing there should be options considered. They should be rigorous, and they should be considered by people who are experts. I guess I don't have a lot more to say. And I need an affirmative agreement that you at least put something down on paper. So. And thank you for the help.
Okay, well, thank you for your suggestion.
Right, yeah. Right.
So I think that the problem we ran into with the committee structure, which is going to be even more of a problem this time, is the charge. And does the charge reflect the desire and willingness of more than 2/3 of the people who show up at town meeting and the 51% that vote? Because otherwise, we could charge Mr. Domitzer and a committee, but I would fear that could be a substantial waste of time for Mr. Domitzer and his committee, particularly where we did have many experts on the last committee and experts on the prior committee. And unfortunately, I think many of the experts were on the 3 prior town hall building committees. We had very seasoned individuals from Mr. Reardon to Mr. Farag to Mr. Cameron to Ms. Coffey, and Mr. Phil Lear. The list goes on. And I too share the concern about wasting people's time, including the time that you're generously willing to donate. I'm concerned without a sense of the mandate of what we should be trying to zone in on and fix. I think we need to do some legwork ahead of time to get a sense from the people. So I'm looking at the official results now on the special town hall election, the special election. And what I'm most focused on is that there were 1,244 people that voted for the schools. And there was only 1,044 people that voted for town hall. So that means there's 200 people out there that seemingly could support a town hall renovation, a town hall project of some sort. There was 1289 for the fire station. There was 1294 for roads and sidewalks. So there was definitely 200 people that were willing to invest in the town in other places, but had a concern, right? Had a concern with the town hall project. And the feedback that I got was exactly what Ms. Tarpey was saying in terms of the worry about the question marks surrounding the existing town hall. I think there were some folks that felt leery about moving town hall services from the common because of tradition and other concerns. But I think that the majority that we're looking at, particularly more than 10 people, that was the swing of the success there, was about fixing existing town halls. So moving forward, next steps. I know it's getting late. What does the board think about trying to dual track this or triple track this, where we asked Ms. Leary to begin working on a comprehensive renovation, repair list, including we need to build in, I think, an assessment of how we need to wall up certain offices within town hall to make it a proper working environment. You can't take calls and have 3 people in a single room making a call. That's not productive, including for the residents that are trying to, contact our town hall staff. So we need to
An
start.
architect for that? Or
Put it all on the list, everything that we need to remain as is within town hall.
architect, designer?
Madam Chair?
I'm speaking, Mr.
Yeah.
Dick.
Okay.
Hold on a second, Mr. Dick. So
So architect, designer, just putting those out there. We need-
just put everything that we can think of. If you need some guidance from the select board on how exactly we want to proceed, I know we've started to do that and get quotes for the windows, the roofs, the fire suppression, let's just put the list out there because,
As we're talking about options, I completely agree with asking Michelle to do that, being respectful of her time, because it will be a time-consuming effort. Thank you in advance.
yes.
I do think it would be valuable to get some high-level strategic guidance, potentially in the form of a survey, to understand people's priorities.
That was another
Does it-
track. Yes.
So she's moving on to that.
Yes.
Good job.
Mr. Fair, our communications specialist.
Back to surveys.
Still here.
Do you want to help us brainstorm maybe for next meeting?
Yeah.
On how to start more, invite feedback, including through a survey and maybe some other mechanisms in a structured way? I think we do want to have a constructive conduit for information coming into the select board about, I don't want to say what we did wrong, that sounds bad, but how can we improve upon either the town hall proposal that we previously had, or was there something else? I do think some straw men.
If I could suggest a shorter, high-level survey, helping understand what people's priorities are. So I understand and appreciate the idea that we need detail before people can make any decisions. I respectfully disagree with that. And I think people either want it on 41 Highland Ave, or they want a low-cost option, or they want nothing until the schools are dealt with. And that kind of thing, just to help understand priorities for as many people as will respond.
Basically, what do you see in the town hall?
What would you vote for?
What would you vote for in
Yeah,
a town hall?
that's
Something
what-
so simple, generic, like, what would be your vote in a town hall? What would you like to see?
And that's where I think putting out a few straw men, very generic straw men, like, if, would you want to see a repair option of town hall at, 10 to 15 million? Would you want to see an option where we look for commercial space somewhere while also doing a repair option at, or not a repair option, but we look to convert the existing old town hall into community space? And we can work with you, Justin, but something to give us some feedback. This is helpful feedback from everyone. I think it does reflect sort of a difference of approach and opinion. But we need a bigger pool of feedback. Yeah.
And when you're talking about commercial, say, in the village center.
Maybe
You
not.
know,
Maybe
because
not.
that will make a
Maybe not.
difference. That will make a difference for a lot of people.
Then that can be the two options out there, commercial in the village, commercial wherever else in
Yeah.
Cohasset. Yeah. Yes, Mr. Dick.
You didn't say yes.
Mike Dick, 27 Parker Avenue. I say this with total respect for all of you. I really do. But I think you are going down the same path all over again. You are losing sight of what the problem is right now. Our problem is we have 41 Highland Avenue composed of two buildings. One is the so-called historic structure, which has its own needs. We also have the 1987 annex, which has its own needs. I believe, and I'm not trying to debate this, I'm trying to just make a statement that might help guide this process as we begin again, is to keep it simple. The need right now is to effect repairs, just repairs. Let's start with that and focus on what needs to be fixed. And then we can talk about architects and designers, which is far down the road, in my humble opinion. I'm not here to debate you, Mr. Grady Paul, Grady, sir. I just want to get this across. Keep it simple and keep the focus on what we're trying to achieve, which is let's work with the buildings we have and repair them and then move on. I would humbly suggest to Chris and to Michelle that if, as you get these estimates, keep them focused on repairs with knowing that renovations also need to be costed, but keep them separate so that they can be evaluated separately. So that's what I have to say. Thank you very much for your time.
One of what we've asked,
I'm sorry?
line one of what we asked Ms. Liberty to do, I just want to clue you in that we took your advice. That's what Michelle is going to do first.
And that's very much appreciated. Thank you.
I think, Mr. Dick, I would say one of my main concerns with the approach of, and this was suggested to me at the board event too, and this is not something I would vote for. Why don't you start with a 1.5 million debt exclusion at the ballot for fire suppression? Well, what next? What's on the list? Slowly rip the Band-Aid off over 5 to 10 years? I can tell you, as a politician for Cohasset, there's about 1,200 people that will not like that suggestion, and I'm one of them. And so I think that the problem is what the repairs are so big at this point that you're doing tax after tax after tax after tax, and you're saying, let's just keep it as it goes. But when does it end, and what's the big picture? And so I think a part of the problem that is that the same concern, I think, that drove the vote on One Pleasant about this unknown cost is the concern with this stream of unknown repairs. And I think that are each going to come with a tax increase, and they're going to get more expensive with each successive year as we slowly span it out over time.
Absolutely. That certainly is a given. But if you compartmentalize, or if you phase, maybe that's a better word, as long as you know what's in front of you, just as we do with the schools, we have Nick Berardi's punch list, which is excellent. We do the same thing, knowing what's in front of us. That can be built into, I would hope, the 5-year plan. And that's at least a starting point to figure this thing out. I completely agree with you, Gene, that yes, there's going to be a long string, but let's recognize those items and then go about this with some smarts and say, here's what we got to do right now. And the next thing has got to wait 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, whatever. But just start small and then proceed. But every proposal that has failed since 2008 has failed because the scope grew, because there was a feeling that, well, if we do this, we should do that. Or wouldn't it be nice if we could also include? And the scope just exploded.
Well, the school capital list also required the largest tax increase that was at the.
That's the
special elec-
reality we're facing, no question.
And I think that's what you would need to do to effectively have any sort of program. You would need another stabilization fund. Is
Perhaps,
what you're suggesting.
but let's get the info in front of us first with parameters, the parameters being what's most needed now for that building. And
Yeah, I
so on.
addressed that point.
Jack,
No,
Chris,
I'll
I
let Jack, I'll let Jack.
That has been addressed from committee. And all the committees looked at it, and they came to the conclusion that in the annex part, leaving aside the historical value of the historic part, the annex part, that is a foolish economy. And that is consistent with, if you talk to people who run and operate old buildings, in which I have done quite a number of them over the years, and worked with a lot of companies who develop properties. At a certain point, the cost of trying to rehab an old building, and the first thing that's going to happen is we're seeing in the fire suppression, all right, it's $1.5 million. Boom, gone. And when you have to do that, it opens up another set of codes, which you have to do. And all of this isn't getting you a newer or better building. This is just repairing something that's really kind of falling apart. And so it would be nice if we could do that. But every study that looks at it has come to the conclusion that at a certain point, you have to do that. And that's what we're faced with the annex. Old Town Hall is different because that has historic value and it speaks to the character of the town. So we need to divorce those. But unfortunately, the reality is it just doesn't work. And every study that has been done started at exactly the same rational thing that you just laid out. And because nobody wants to spend more than they have to, and they all come to the conclusion that you got to do that. So that's where we're at. And you know, if we're going to try to look at things realistically, hard nosed, there's some facts that aren't going to change, and it's tough. And by the way, we do appreciate everybody coming forward, but that's very, very tough. And we're going to have to face that. And this is probably not the best time in history to be on the Cohasset Select Board either.
It's a great time. Mr. Senior, you want to?
Well, at the risk of saying anything, I will remind you, Mr. Dick, that after the 2018 vote, the select board at the time said, come up with a repair list. And it did. And after lots of conversation in 2019, a warrant article went on to repair the roof. And on the floor of town meeting, an amendment was made to replace it with a paint job, because the roof could wait and a paint job was more important for the 250th anniversary. And guess what passed? A paint job. And the roof 5 years later is still the same, and it's still leaking, and it's worse. So I feel like we're in Groundhog Day. And I respect all the thought, but it's Groundhog Day, and it's not funny, and I don't like groundhogs particularly. And one other small point is I've worked in a building under construction. I was with the home builders, and the CEO made the brilliant suggestion that when they repaired the building around us, we're going to stay there, except the executive floor, which moved outside. Okay, it was a night. It was an absolute nightmare. And after 6 months of the staff, by the way, this was just the staff, right, suffering through that, they finally pushed us into temporary space. We have elderly people. I have people with allergies. I have people with kids coming in every single day to that building. I cannot imagine in a million years having people come into a building under repair work. And if it was going to stretch out over years and years and years, I wouldn't put people in. I wouldn't work in it. I wouldn't expect anyone else to work in it. And I can't expect the public to safely come into a building that's under perpetual repair. I do appreciate where you're coming from. I'm just telling you that I from my own personal lived experience, I can't see that working. Because you have to put us, if you're going to put us in trailers, I guess, and put us on the common, I guess we could be sitting there for a while. I just don't see it realistically happening. And you're right, that this backlog has happened. There's no question. I think it's at a point, though, where it just can't be kicked down the road. The can can't be kicked down the road anymore. I mean, just a few weeks ago, and I promise I'll stop right here, the heat system failed, and they had to scramble to find a pump. Now, thank God, Nick Berard is a very creative man, and he found a pump. And that said, the main unit itself is 40 years old, and it's not repairable. So something else more fundamental is kind of go wrong, and we're trying every day that it won't. And to have to manage customer service. I mean, people come in the building, 30, 40, 50 people come in the building every day. And with team effort, we have a brand new controller. We have a brand new town accountant who's learning in person right now. If she's off site, I can't even get her trained. I have a brand new assessor about to start. I want to make sure we're delivering the high quality services people expect of us. And no one wants a Taj Mahal. We just want to say this don't work. So I've said enough.
Thank you. Cadillac with the Toyota price.
I'll take a Toyota, man. I'll take a Prius.
I say we
Okay.
put Grady in the parking lot with the bulldozer and the keys and the annex will be fine.
Well, I will say, as a government employee, working in a safe working environment is very important. I worked at the state building where the elevator inspection is, and I went into an elevator and it free fell 20 floors, which was not fun. Stopped at floor 2, thankfully. So I feel strongly about safety for government employees, having had that experience, among others, which was the height of irony at Ashburton. But so, okay, we know we've got a lot of work to do. Justin, we would love for you to work with us on trying to figure out how to do a survey plus some communication out to the community to invite helpful feedback from everyone. Michelle, we should begin working through a repair list as well as looking at other options for relocation of employees, particularly if we're really going to do the repairs. We should be considering the lease. We should go and consider what options still exist with One Pleasant, whether on a temporary or other basis. And to the extent that there's other buildings out there, we should continue looking around, because we might have a time when we have no option and we have to vacate for fire safety issues. Yeah, yeah. Thank you, gentlemen. All right. Anything else to say on this before we move on? I think we've got marching orders. All right. Town manager update. Anything to add, Chris?
Just really quick, I'm going to shift gears entirely.
Okay.
Next weekend is the craft fair on the Common. It's as traditional Cohasset as you can get, all the churches, ASP. So if you're in town, next Saturday, just wander around and take part in a wonderful tradition, all centered around the Common. And on the 9th, we'll be doing our annual tree lighting in conjunction with the stroll. I will be out of town for my father's birthday, so Justin will hold responsibilities as the MC that evening, though I'm going to encourage anyone on the board who wants to participate to do so, and I'm going to ask Justin to give an update on that.
Very quickly, holiday stroll will be starting at 4:30 on December 9th. Santa will arrive by fire truck to the Cohasset Common for the tree lighting. We've asked Safe Harbor to help us count down from 10 to 0 and to light the tree. I've already spoken to Nicole Balashi, and she's going to put that out to some of her youth ambassadors. There's going to be hay rides, carolers, live music, cake decorating, kids crafts, and more. So everybody come out. It starts a little bit earlier, 4:30, and then so we'll light the tree probably at around 4:45, 5 o'clock. So we invite everybody out there, as well as our media friends, and so forth.
And Nick and his team have been out there. They have a lot of fun doing this. They've been wrapped up in their winter coats. They have a couple of lifts. They've been doing the trees. So I think it's going to look really, really nice.
I'm told 4 more trees are going to be lit up this year than last year. So every year they're trying to do more and more and more.
Yeah, and on that, Chris, you did a good job getting that star up on the tree.
That's all Nick.
Whoever did that, I got these there's a star that some women had donated a year ago, and they did it too late to get it on the tree. And it kind of got lost, and I sent an email in, and they're sending me these emails. What a miraculous thing that Nick and your staff did.
Great stuff, Cohasset.
Great stuff. True North.
Little tiny letters,
All right.
Creighton Star.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't
Anything
say that, but I think we kind of need all
Okay.
that.
All right, Jack, was that your select board comment?
No, I'm going to do another one, but can
You
I
are?
continue it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Go.
I just
You're
want
up.
to do the craft fair. If you haven't bought your Christmas presents, all kinds of craftsmen from all ages spend a lot of time putting really great Christmas gifts and stuff. So don't forget, not only on the Common, but all the churches have all this craft stuff. This Saturday.
Oh, sorry.
This Saturday. Great memories of that fair as when I was a kid, saved my $10 from babysitting and went and did my Christmas shopping. When that tree was lit for the first time, planted and lit for the first time, brought my oldest as a toddler to the first tree lighting a long time ago. Maybe next year he'll bring his child. So the only other update I have is I'm on the Cohasset High School Athletic Hall of Fame Committee, and we're going to have an induction next year, next March. And we're meeting, I think it's not this Thursday, I think it's a week from Thursday, for a final ballot for a vote. And there'll be a big event, induction ceremony in March at Cohasset Golf Club. It's been on hiatus because of COVID. We tend to do it every 2 years, but it's a great community event. People travel in from all around the country if they're inducted. So it should be a big class because we have missed a couple of big teams. So that's exciting. Great.
I promise I'll be quick. I want to shout out to Ted Carroll and the rec department for running a very successful Thanksgiving road race. 1,000 runners. The men's winner was Joseph Carroll III from Cohasset. The women's winner was not from Cohasset. Simone Beauchamp from Wellesley won. Going back to Mr. Carroll, he ran a course record 15:43. The second place women's winner was a Cohasset resident, so shout out to Molly Shanley. And then lastly, some donations that we want to say thank you for. National Grid for a donation, Cohasset Collision, Glenn Davis, Phil Mahoney, and Sunbelt Rentals for a very successful race.
Mr. Grady, can you follow that?
No, I can't beat that. Let's just say, interesting meeting tonight. At some point, we're gonna get town hall done.
Yeah.
I'm just speaking to the two people left in the room now. And you. We are gonna get it done. You know, I'm so bothered by the fact we tried to give the best bang for the buck we could. And I'm sad it didn't pan out. But, you know, it's tough going back to the drawing board, but I guess it's what we gotta do for an interim period of time. That's, don't get it all together.
Last comment, if I could just thank the Tarpies for engagement.
Yes.
Yeah.
Presence throughout this very long meeting and your thoughtful input. Thank you.
Yes, yes, thank you.
And the private ways will not be forgotten,
Yes,
just
yes.
so you know.
Yes. Well, I'm looking forward to the tree lighting. 4:30, select board lights the trees. So for those of you in town, no, I get to flip the switch. This is the only payoff I get for this role. Flip the switch in a good way. No, I'm just kidding. No, but I did want to thank all the voters who came out. There's 2,100 people. It was one of the, probably the largest turnout we've had since a presidential election, I want to say 8 years ago. It was a huge amount of people. Including thank you to those who voted for the proposals and those who did. That's what democracy is about. So we're just going to continue to find a solution from there. All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.